How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Some idea.
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final scene of
He's calling out cults and conspiracies wild, Gnostic sex cults and theories compiled. But one question's raised and it's blocked on the spot. No room for dissent in the world he's got. But the crowd starts to laugh and they're starting to see a whole lot of words that just don't agree. Oh, Emperor James, are you feeling the breeze? Might wanna look down, see what's caught at the knee. He's the Emperor with no clothes, strutting around like nobody knows, shouting loud, thinking he's wise, but he's bearing it all to everyone's eyes. He's the Emperor, yeah, with no disguise, slipped down by his own price. The fat is an intellectual line. Oprah's got mind control, powers divine. He's calling Saint Michael the devil in charge and telling the Catholics they got it too large. Oh, James, don't you know it's a tricky game when you're calling out folks but you're doing the same. You say it's a truth only you understand, but the crowd's got a mirror showing just where you stand. He's the Emperor with no clothes, strutting around like nobody knows, shouting loud, thinking he's wise, but he's bearing it all to everyone's eyes. He's the Emperor, yeah, with no disguise, stripped down by his own pride. Start to fade and the truth comes around. His theories unravel like threads on the ground. The court starts to giggle, the people all cheer, for the emperor's naked, the truth's finally here. He's the emperor with no clothes, strutting around like nobody knows, shouting loud, thinking he's wise, but he's bearing it all to everyone's eyes. He's the emperor, yeah, with no disguise, stripped down by his own pride. So here's to the lesson, let's give it a toast to emperors walking in nothing but boast. Join Carlin's cult and open your eyes. She's here to expose James's epic lies. James won't admit it, he refuses to believe queer theory destabilizes normativity, gender binary and the nuclear family. James blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him, creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. He used to believe in something, what happened? Mills for liberty. Gnostic sex cult, building his own world, a Gnostic sex cult, unhinged from reality, totally lost in what can we do? But mock him relentlessly. It's not a Gnostic sex cult, James. No, it's not. Stop lying to your audience. No, it's not. It's not Gnostic, James. Grip Mary Nardini tells us queer liberation means the annihilation of capitalism. Catch up, James. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. Whoa. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's capitalism. To pocket all that money from the mills for liberty. The left hates capitalism, but James won't admit it. He refuses to believe queer theory stabilizes normativity, gender binary and the nuclear family. But James blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him, creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. Is to believe in something. What happens for liberty? Gnostic sex cult, building his own world. Gnostic sex cult, unhinged from reality. He's totally lost it. What can we do but mock him relentlessly?
What up, guys? Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I do Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, where we really talk about whatever I want to talk about. Now, we were originally going to do another Sophie Lewis Day today. We, of course, have secret videos that are unlisted that Sophie apparently put in a playlist, which is how we found them. If you don't know who Sophie is, don't worry about it. Come back another day. Because I decided not to do another day of Sophie because it is the day before Thanksgiving. And it's just like, it feels like a lighter day. It feels like a more snarky day. It feels like, I don't know, it's been a quiet day. I feel like we're starting to quiet things down for the holidays, and in some respects that's good, and in some respects that's bad. I always find the end of the year for me gives me a lot of time to do stuff that I've always wanted to do all throughout the year, but I just haven't had time for some reason, and you just kind of peacefully get to revisit it. And so that's what I've been doing today. I've been peacefully revisiting some stuff because it's been a quiet day, and I just don't feel like, mucking it up with too much seriousness. We can do seriousness another day. We're all going to have food tomorrow. I'm preparing to cook Thanksgiving. I'll be doing a really simple Thanksgiving this year. I'm doing a turkey that I'm brining. I'm going to make my brine later and then stick the turkey in it and put it outside overnight. And it's going to be awesome. My brine, for people who are really nosy, is made with molasses, honey, and soy sauce. And, of course, a metric ton of salt, like more salt than you've ever seen in your life. And you just boil it all up in a pot of water. And then you get it really hot and you get all the ingredients good and mixed. And then you cool it all down. Because you can't put the turkey in hot water. You got to cool the water down. So you got to put it in the fridge or the freezer. You got to cool that shit down. You got to put bags of ice in it. I'm sending Victor to the store to get bags of ice because I forgot to get bags of ice yesterday when I was out shopping. So there's going to be bags of ice involved. And then once you get that nice brine, like really, really cool, you stick the turkey in it in a giant bucket. And then I put it outside overnight because I live in New Hampshire where it's cold. And then you just leave it there and you just leave it alone. And what happens when you brine a turkey is that the salt that you put in the water pushes all of the other things in the water into the turkey. And it also makes the meat really moist in the turkey. And it makes it taste just a little bit salty, which I actually really appreciate because I like salt. Okay, I do. I know people are shocked at the revelation that I like salt, but I do. And then you take it out, and I put butter underneath the skin of the turkey, which makes the skin crisp all up. And then when my turkey comes out of the oven, it looks like it's burned. And people go, Carlin, you burned your turkey. And I go, no. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Because the brown that you're seeing on the turkey, that's not char. That is the remnants of the molasses, soy sauce, honey brine that the turkey has been sitting in all night. It makes the turkey really dark and really brown, but then beautiful and moist and good on the inside. And the best part about brining a turkey is the turkey never dries out. You can have leftovers for days that are never, ever dry. Anyway, that's my pro tip for Thanksgiving is to brine a turkey. It's like the easiest thing to do in the world, and it tastes really, really good. And there are all sorts of brines you can do, and you can get kits and stuff like that. And, it's a lot safer than deep frying a turkey. And so I'm going to be doing turkey. I'm going to be doing pork stuffing because my grandmother always made a pork stuffing that was just like a normal stuffing. It had pork in it and like some other stuff. I'm going to be doing that. I might put a little maple syrup in the stuffing. I'm feeling a little, I've been cooking with maple syrup lately. I've been making burrito meat with maple syrup lately, and it's been working out pretty well. It's like, it combines that kind of like sweetness with the more salt. It's just like, it's I might try a little experiment to see if I can improve on my grandmother's stuffing recipe. I'm going to be doing turkey gravy and mashed potatoes, and that's it. That's it. I'm not doing any other fancy fixings. I'm not doing cranberry sauce or broccoli and cheese or green bean casserole or, Brussels sprouts or any sort of vegetable, because Victor and I never end up eating them anyway. Well, that's not true. If I make broccoli and cheese, the broccoli and cheese gets eaten. I'll tell you that. I make really good broccoli and cheese. Anyway, that's what I'm preparing for Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have some Thanksgiving plans. I'm going to be drinking some wine, some of the sparkling variety, and cooking. And we got some shrimp too. We got some really nice shrimp, so that's going to be like a pre-Thanksgiving snack. And it's going to be a great day, and it's going to be a restful day, and I hope you guys all have plans, whether or not they're just like sitting at home and cooking your own meal or going with friends and family or whatever. And I hope you all have a great holiday, and I'm really, really grateful for everyone who comes to my streams and lets me do the work I do. I appreciate you guys. I can't do this without you. So I appreciate you being here. Anyway, what are we watching today? Because we're not watching anything serious. So what are we watching today? Well, as you guys know, I have a history with the Libertarian Party. Now, in my heart of hearts, I do still consider myself to be a libertarian. In my heart of hearts, I really, really do. However, I kind of I won't say I cut ties. I think I might still be a member of the Libertarian Party, but I might not still be a member. I definitely don't want to give them any more money right now, but I think I may have accidentally paid the dues last year, not realizing that I didn't, unpay the dues. And so I think I might still be a member, but I'm not exactly sure, and honestly doesn't matter. But anyway, I was really involved in libertarian politics for 2 straight years. I was really involved in 2021 and 2022. 2021 was when I joined the Libertarian Party. I joined through the Mises Caucus, and it was because I was trying to work with the Republicans in the state of New Hampshire to pass a ban on critical race theory, and Republicans just screwed it up from top to bottom. It was just one of the most epic F-ups I've ever seen in my life. And so eventually I got sick of it, and I was always more libertarian-minded anyway, and so I was like, F you guys. I broke up with conservatives. Conservatives never got the memo that I broke up with them until a year later when they got really pissed off that I broke up with them, and I was like, bro, I broke up with you a year ago. I don't know what you're talking about. And so they got really pissed off, but I ended up joining the Libertarian Party in the Mises Caucus. I was a delegate at the 2022 convention in Reno, where it was the Mises Caucus takeover of the Libertarian Party. I was completely in favor of the Mises Caucus takeover. I was really excited about it because I hated the old leadership of the Libertarian Party. I thought they sucked, and I really, really did. I thought and believed that Angela McArdle, who is now the chair of the Libertarian Party, she was elected in 2022, and Michael Heiss, who ran the Mises Caucus, I really, really, really believed that they were the answer to the problems in the Libertarian Party. And oh shit, was I wrong. Oh, was I wrong. This is one of those rare moments where I have to admit that I was wrong. Because I was wrong. I was wrong. And I'll explain more in a second. Naruto, Sophie is to Carlin as Pearl is to Heidi. These forbidden internet romances are pure and uncorruptible. Yeah, I think that's a good comparison, Naruto. Thank you for that. But in regards to Dave Smith is kind of the standard bearer of the Libertarian Party, or not the Libertarian Party, the Mises Caucus. I never actually had a positive impression of Dave Smith. Never. Not even back in 2021 when I was really gung-ho about it. Not in 2022 when I was a delegate at the National Convention. I literally never had a positive impression of Dave Smith. Angela McArdle I had a very positive impression of. I thought that Angela could do well as the leader of the Libertarian Party. Completely 100% wrong about that. I was 100% correct about Dave Smith. And I'm going to explain why. So Dave Smith was, and by the way, I had to pretend to like Dave Smith for 2 years in order to not cause waves, because you got to understand, when you're running around with Mises Caucus people, they basically worship the ground that Dave Smith walks on. They listen to all his shows. They hang on his every word. Now, I've never been one to hang on the words of content creators because, I don't watch other people's content as a general rule. I'm too busy with my own stuff. I don't want to spend hours a day watching other people's content unless it's something that's directly interesting to me. I just don't want to do it. I don't even watch other people's content unless I'm live on the internet with you guys, because I figure if I'm going to watch other people's content, then I'm going to do it on the internet productively. I'm not just going to do it by myself. Let me tell you why I never trusted Dave Smith. Back in 2021, when I joined the Libertarian Party and the LP&H and the Mises Caucus, this is when everyone was getting along on that side. And there were some guys in the Mises Caucus in New Hampshire and even nationally that really wanted me to talk to Dave Smith, because this was at the height of my walkaway days, because I had been touring with the walkaway campaign for months and months and months and months and months. I was very well known in these disaffected lefty circles. I had a lot of followers at that point from the disaffected Democrat circle, because that was my story. I was a Democrat for 20 years. I left the left at the beginning of 2020, well, in 2019 really, but at the beginning of 2020 publicly. I toured with the Walkaway campaign, doing rallies all over the country saying, I left the left and here's why I think you should vote for Trump for 6 months. I did every weekend for 6 months. And so by the time I kind of joined the Mises Caucus, which again, like I was never a conservative, even when I was telling people, I said very clearly I was never a conservative. I was always more libertarian minded. And so when the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire and the Mises Caucus came and started talking to me and like recruited me, I got on board pretty quickly because the values that they were talking about weren't values that I had heard coming out of the Libertarian National Party. I was not a fan of Joe Jorgensen, who ran for president in 2020 as the nominee of the party. I just really had no interest in it. I thought the Libertarian Party was very woke. And so like when the Mises Caucus came and recruited me, they got my attention, and that was part of why I was so gung-ho about it, right? So when I joined, I had all this like disaffected lefty audience, which in my mind was like ripe for the picking. And Dave Smith was running around and making these videos saying, I want to recruit 100,000 new members to the Libertarian Party. And he spoke so passionately. And even though I was always kind of like, I don't know about this guy, because I wasn't into him before this. I wasn't one of these like fanboys like that exist in the Libertarian Party. I was like, okay, Dave, you want to recruit 100,000 new people to the Libertarian Party. I have a really big audience of people who are disaffected from the left and are looking for some sort of solution. And I understand, like, you know, you don't want to recruit a lot of leftists to the LP because you don't want, I don't believe in like leftist libertarianism either, if that makes sense. Like, I don't like a lot of the woke libertarians either. Just because I'm not a fan of what the Mises Caucus and Dave Smith are doing now doesn't mean I'm a fan of like the fakertarians either. I'm not a fan of them either. I think that both of the tribes within the Libertarian Party suck. So it's not like you just want to recruit a whole bunch of leftists, but I was like, listen, man, I have all these people that are following me that might be open to listening to what your principles and what your ideas are for the first time in their lives because you guys don't suck. Why don't we do a show together? And it wasn't just me saying to Dave Smith, why don't we just do a show together? Because I didn't really know who he was, so I wasn't like enamored of him or anything. But I had a lot of people in the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire and in the Mises Caucus saying, Carlin, you have to go on Dave Smith's show. You have to go on Dave Smith's show. You have to go on Dave Smith's show. And my answer was always, yeah, I mean, fine. Like, I'll do it, I guess. Like, I was never like really that into it. But what struck me about the whole situation is that Dave Smith kept agreeing to people over and over and over again, because other people would go up and ask him, they'd be like, Dave, can you have Carlin on your show? Can you talk to Carlin? Do you guys want to talk? Because she can bring more people in. Do you want to talk to Carlin? And every single time someone else asked Dave Smith if he would talk to me, he said yes. That was always what was reported back to me. And then they come and say, Carlin, I just talked to Dave Smith and he said he talked to you. And I said, okay, cool. And I would slide into Dave Smith's DM saying, hey, bro, do you want to talk? Do you want to schedule something? What's going on? This kept happening for months and months and months and months and months and months. Actually, let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can actually see me. Hang on. That's a little bit bigger anyway. This kept happening for months and months and months and months and months, where like someone would go to Dave Smith, say, Dave, you should have Carlin on your show. Dave would say yes. That person would then come back to me saying, Carlin, Dave wants to talk to you. I would then reach out to Dave and he would never answer. Never answered. Finally, Michael Heiss and Dave Smith were going to be on Tim Pool's podcast, and Michael Heiss was texting me from Tim Pool's studio, I guess, with Dave Smith saying, I'm looking over Dave Smith's phone and I'm telling him to email you right fucking now because he needs to email you and get you on that show. This was months after this whole thing started. And finally, Dave Smith did email me because Michael Heiss looked over his shoulder and made him fucking email me. And he said, hey, Carlin, do you want to come on the show? And I said, yes, Dave, let's schedule a time. And I never heard back from him. And listen, man, this isn't like a poor woe is me thing, because I never actually really cared about being on his show in the first place. My bigger principle is this, and this is how I knew that Dave Smith was not serious. Because if you're running around saying, I want to recruit 100,000 new people to the Libertarian Party, and then someone comes to you and they're like, bro, I've got all these politically disaffected people that don't even know what way is up, and maybe this is a good time to teach them. Maybe this is a good time to share your principles. Maybe this is a good time to see how many of these people might be responsive to libertarian values. Because I had so many disaffected, politically disaffected people following me at that point. It was ridiculous. And he never bit. And so in my mind, I was kind of like, how serious can you be about recruiting 100,000 people to the Libertarian Party if you've got me coming to you, if you've got all these Mises Caucus people coming to you, if you've got Michael Heiss demanding you get in touch with me, and you can't bother to schedule an interview, and this, again, this was not like in a short time period. This was over the course of like at least a year this was going on. Then there were a couple events where I saw Dave Smith in person. There was the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania convention, which I went to. This was in 2022, and there was reasons I went to it. I don't want to go into those now, but I went to it. And then it was at the national convention in 2022 in Reno. And both times that Dave Smith and I were in the same place, he would turn to make eye contact with me and then immediately turn his head and like run away. And I was like, well, the first time this happened, I was like, oh, that's interesting. He's afraid of me. That's interesting. I had never said a bad thing about the guy publicly at this point because, again, you had to pretend to like Dave Smith in order to be accepted in Mises Caucus circles. And I was like, I didn't hate the guy. I didn't have any bad feelings towards him. I was just like, I really just didn't care either way. I didn't think he was funny. Dave Smith is not funny. You always have to pretend that Dave Smith is funny, but he's not funny. He's really not. He's really not. Robbie Bernstein is way funnier than Dave Smith. I maintain this. This is not just about hate. I think Robbie Bernstein is hilarious. Dave Smith is not funny, but you have to pretend that he's funny in order to keep the peace. But I did it, and I never said anything bad about the guy, but like it was even more pronounced at the Reno reset for me because there was definitely a moment. And again, I wasn't trying to orchestrate any of this. It just happened because like I didn't really care. I just thought it was interesting when it happened where like Dave Smith would be standing next to someone that was like standing right next to me, and then Dave Smith would notice I was there, or we'd like walk by each other in a completely empty hallway, and he would look at me for a split second and then like literally run in the other direction, and I was like, oh honey, you're afraid of me. I had never said anything bad about the guy. So I always knew that Dave Smith wasn't serious, is what I'm trying to say. Even when I was fighting for the Mises Caucus to be successful, even when I was an active participant in that, I never thought that Dave Smith was actually serious about recruiting all these new people to the Libertarian Party. And watching what has unfolded in the last year, it has just confirmed everything that I always thought was true. And I want to be very clear about this before we get into this. And we're going to talk about James Lindsay's little fight with Dave Smith, too, before we get into this, because there's gossip around this. That's why we listened to some James songs earlier. I want to be really clear about this. I supported Michael Rechtenwald as the party's nominee. I unequivocally supported Michael Rechtenwald. I think Michael Rechtenwald is great. My heart literally broke for Michael Rechtenwald when he lost. It really, really did. I had Michael Rechtenwald on my channel. I've never said a bad thing about Michael Rechtenwald. Now, Michael Rechtenwald is really pissed off at me and blocked me on Twitter. Why is he pissed off at me and blocked me on Twitter? Because after Chase Oliver won the nomination, my position was, you guys lost, he won, everyone get it together and start acting like adults. Chase Oliver may not be a perfect candidate, but I'd been following Chase Oliver since he had kind of like a spoiler in the 2022 Georgia Senate race, where Chase Oliver was the reason there was a runoff in Georgia in 2022. Chase Oliver is literally the reason there were 2 Democratic senators from Florida that were elected in 2022, because he, or not 2 rather, wait, no, not one, the Herschel Walker one. I'm confusing things. Chase Oliver was the reason there was a runoff in the Herschel Walker Georgia Senate race. I think that was the one. Chase Oliver caused something to happen in Georgia. I might be getting my details mixed up, but he definitely caused something to happen, and that made me pay attention to him. Now, Chase Oliver and I disagree on a lot of things. Okay? Chase Oliver and I have always disagreed on, he is more kind of like socially liberal than I am. He's gay. He did wear a mask during COVID. But that's like a personal choice, right? It's like if you have the personal choice not to wear a mask, then you have the personal choice to wear a mask. I never really held that against him. Obviously, I don't care if Chase Oliver is gay. Most of the men watching my show are gay. Well, maybe not most, but like a good 50% of the men who watch my show are gay. So I have no problem with gay men at all. I don't care. I didn't think Chase Oliver was a perfect candidate, but I thought Chase Oliver was a really good candidate, and I thought he was an aggressively anti-war candidate. Thank you. This is the one. The Herschel Walker, Raphael Warnock one. That was the one he spoiled. He's an aggressively anti-war candidate. He is absolutely a libertarian. There is no question that Chase Oliver is a libertarian, and Chase Oliver works harder than almost anyone in the Libertarian Party. And you know what? He didn't have to be my choice for presidential candidate for me to say that Chase Oliver works his ass off, and he is an excellent campaigner, and he's excellent at talking to people, and it was a massive upset that he won, and it was right down to the wire, and it was a heart-wrenching thing to watch. Honestly, again, my heart broke for Michael Rechtenwald when he lost, because I know how much Michael Rechtenwald sacrificed for that, and even though Michael Rechtenwald now doesn't like me because I said Chase Oliver won and you all got to get it together, like, I don't have any ill will towards him. I wanted him to win. But Chase Oliver won. And that's just the ropes. And that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And for me, I looked at Chase Oliver and I saw him give a speech after he was named the official nominee for president of the party, saying, "We will run an aggressively anti-war campaign. We will be the only aggressively anti-war campaign in the race." And he was right about that. They could have run an amazing anti-war campaign, and they didn't even try, because the next day, not even the next day, the minute that Chase Oliver won, Dave Smith and Michael Heiss and Clint Russell and Josie, the redheaded MAGA grifter, who I will not call a libertarian at all because she's a redheaded fucking MAGA grifter, and Angela McArdle, and the entire Mises caucus, and all of Dave Smith's friends started running a massive fucking smear campaign against Chase Oliver because they were sore losers who lost. I watched the entire nominating process play out at the convention. I watched the live stream the whole time. I probably should have live streamed it, but I didn't because I didn't really think people would be interested. I watched most of the fucking convention, okay? Chase Oliver won fair and square in a convention that Angela McArdle was the chair of, and that's just the way it goes. You win some, you lose some. But when you become a massive set of sore losers and start running around the internet calling Chase Oliver every fucking terrible name in the book, saying he's a Marxist, saying he wants to trans your kids, saying he's a pedophile. He's not any of those things, by the way. I spend 6 days a week studying radical revolutionary Marxists. The idea that Chase Oliver is a Marxist is truly one of the most laughable fucking things I have ever heard in my life. And anyone who understands libertarian positions absolutely knows that. But the problem is the Mises caucus wasn't libertarian, or maybe they were at one point, but they're not anymore. At some point they became the conservative fucking MAGA grift that was only interested in going on the big podcasts and being on the shows and having the clout and all this stuff. That is all they were interested in. They were not interested in running a principled race, and the Libertarian Party is supposed to be the party of principle. Everyone fucking knew that the Libertarian candidate was never going to win the presidency. Everyone fucking knew that. And so for now, Angela McArdle to come out and say, well, there was no way that Chase Oliver was going to win, so we just had to support Trump. Then why the fuck are you the chair of the Libertarian Party to begin with? Because everyone knows that the role of the Libertarian Party right now is that it is never going to win the presidency. Not right now, maybe someday, but not right now. The role of the Libertarian Party is to express libertarian principles and to run libertarian candidates and to bring more people over to the beautiful philosophy that is libertarianism. That is the fucking role of the party. It is not to be a party that is running cover for Republicans and Donald Trump. And the reason that the chair of the Libertarian Party, who is Angela McArdle, and Dave Smith, the standard bearer for the Mises caucus, and a whole bunch of other people too. Again, we got Clint Russell, the Liberty Lockdown podcast. Clint Russell, by the way, has never been a libertarian. Clint Russell is a conservative. Clint Russell has always been a conservative, but he says he has libertarian leanings, but he's not actually a libertarian. I've known this for years. Again, I knew Clint Russell wasn't a libertarian like back in 2022. Josie, the redheaded MAGA grifter, wants nothing more than to go on podcast and show off her tits and make money, and that's it. She's not a fucking libertarian. She's never fucking been a libertarian. But all these people were such sore losers because all of them believed that they were going to have control over the messaging of the Libertarian Party presidential candidate in the form of Michael Rechtenwald. And they lost. And they lost to someone that they can't stand because Chase Oliver never bent the knee to their bullshit. And again, I want to emphasize this. I was on Michael Rechtenwald's team, but Chase Oliver is not the person that they've made him out to be. His positions are not what they made him out to be. He's not a Marxist. He's not a leftist. He's not a pedophile. He's not a groomer. He doesn't want to trans your kids. None of that was true. It was never true. And they went all over the internet spreading these lies to make it seem like he was something that it wasn't. And that was disgusting to me. As people who claim to be part of the party of fucking principle, people who claim to be the standard bearer of principle, it was fucking disgusting. And then they were like, well, why isn't Chase Oliver coming on our shows? Well, why the fuck would he? Why would he? If I was Chase Oliver, I wouldn't have gone on any of their shows. First of all, it would have been walking into a completely toxic audience where you're not going to gain anything. There's nothing that you can say to undo the smears that have been done. They're not going to give an inch because they're being petulant fucking children who are sore losers. There was no upside. There was no upside to Chase Oliver going on any of those shows. So why would he do it? He could be out campaigning, talking to real people, going to like state fairs, shaking hands, kissing babies, being out in the real fucking world, which is where he does better anyway. I thought that what happened to Chase Oliver at the hands of Angela McArdle and the Libertarian Party was absolutely disgusting. Because he has so many strengths that he can bring to the table. And this is really the theme through my entire experience with the Libertarian Party and in libertarian politics. It is that if you actually care, about advancing libertarianism and advancing a strong libertarian message and recruiting more people and teaching more people what this is, then you put aside personal bullshit and you focus on something that fucking matters. It seems to me that no one in the Libertarian Party, or a very small minority, understand putting aside personal bullshit to focus on something that matters. I have always said, with my work, with pretty much anything, I will work with anyone, and I mean fucking anyone, that wants to work productively towards the same goals that I have. And guess what? We don't need to like each other. We don't need to be best friends. We can have had disagreements in the past. I know how to put that shit aside because I am a fully grown adult. The morons running the Libertarian Party have no fucking clue. And by the way, I would say that of both the tribes in the Libertarian Party. I would say that of the people that hated the Mises Caucus from the get-go, and I would say that of the Mises Caucus today, because in my opinion, they're two sides of the same goddamn coin. There are good people in the Libertarian Party. There are principled people in the Libertarian Party. I look at someone like Dennis Pratt. Dennis is the best. I love Dennis to death. I look at someone like Justin O'Donnell. Justin O'Donnell he is willing to go out, do whatever is required to advance libertarianism. He actually shows up. He does petitioning. He does all the boring stuff that no one else wants to do. He knows everything. He will work with anyone. There are so many good people like them that aren't on a tribe, that literally just want to get stuff done. And those people continue to get drowned out by these two warring fucking tribes in the Libertarian Party, to the point where, like, from my perspective, there was no point in being involved, and that's why I stopped being involved. It wasn't that people like to say, Curling got kicked out of the Libertarian Party. No, I didn't. I'm pretty sure I'm actually still a member of it. I just didn't want to be involved anymore because it was like spinning my wheels, and quite frankly, I can accomplish more on my own through my Substack and through my streams and through my Twitter account and through selling merch. I can accomplish more on my own, make more advances against the things that I care about without any of them if I just focus on what I want to do and I keep my nose out of it. Because here's the other thing about being involved in libertarian politics. It sucks up all of your time and all of your energy, and it is a thankless task, and no one ever acknowledges how much work you put into it. And so, you know what? F it. I don't need to be involved. That was why I left in the first place. So, Angela, in my opinion, Angela McArdle and Dave Smith and many other people completely and totally fucked over the Libertarian Party presidential candidate, who was Chase Oliver. They did it to suck Trump's cock as revenge because they were sore losers that they lost to Chase Oliver in the first place. And how did that work out for them? Because Trump promised to nominate a Libertarian Party cabinet member. And Angela McArdle is doing her level best to lie to people to say, RFK is a libertarian, pinky swear, trust me, bro. No, he's not. No, he's not. There is no universe in which RFK is a libertarian. I'm sorry. You can like RFK. You can like that he got nominated to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. You can think that's a good, disruptive thing. I personally think it's a good disruptive thing. I don't dislike RFK. I don't dislike everything he stands for. Well, except that RFK does stand for affirmative action. RFK does stand for Democrat policies around DEI. RFK wants to take our guns. RFK wants to use the government to mandate what can be put in food or not, which is, by the way, that's not actually a libertarian position. You might agree with it, but that's not a libertarian position. There are many, 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 many things that RFK is absolutely not aligned with libertarians on. But Angela swears that he paid the lifetime membership fee of what, like $1,500 to be a lifetime member of the Libertarian Party, and so that makes him a libertarian? No. Go fuck yourself, Angela. There is no universe in which RFK is a libertarian, and I'm old enough to remember when RFK spoke at PorkFest. What was it, in 2023? Because I was in the room when he did it. And PorkFest is one of the most libertarian events that you can go to. RFK pissed off most of the libertarians there by not allowing them to have their gun around the event. He pissed off most of the libertarians there. They did this thing where they closed off the pavilion, which never, ever, ever happens, which basically prevented most of the people at PorkFest from actually seeing his speech. He pissed off a bunch of people. So I'm sorry. There is no universe in which I will accept that RFK Jr. is a libertarian. And again, you can like him on certain things and you can like that he's a disruptive force. That does not make him a libertarian. Tulsi Gabbard, don't even get me fucking started. Tulsi Gabbard is going to recommend that we go to war with Iran. Tulsi Gabbard cozies up to whatever is politically convenient for her at the time. She ain't no libertarian. So where's the libertarian? And the reason I bring Tulsi Gabbard up, by the way, is because Charlie Kirk tried to convince libertarians she was a libertarian, and we were like, no, bro, no, she's not, no, no. So where's the libertarian in the cabinet? There isn't one. Why isn't there one? Because when Donald Trump spoke to the Libertarian National Convention, and he promised on video to put a libertarian in the cabinet, he lied. And Angela McArdle went around saying, we're going to get a libertarian in the cabinet, and then we didn't. And now she's trying to spin it to say, it's totally RFK, pinky swear, trust me, bro. And Dave Smith has been running cover for this the entire time. And so this is a Twitter space that Dave Smith and Angela McArdle and a couple other people that I've mentioned are... No, Vivek's not a libertarian. Vivek's not a libertarian. Now, Vivek has a good head on his shoulders, and overall Doge is a good idea, right? But we also have to acknowledge, guys, Doge doesn't actually have any decision-making power. The only thing that Doge can really do is make recommendations. And Vivek's not a libertarian, and Elon Musk isn't a libertarian. And again, I adore Vivek. I love Vivek. Vivek's followed my work for a long time. Vivek's followed my work for longer than he's known who Angela McArdle and Michael Heiss were. I think he's great. not perfect, but pretty effing good. But he's not a libertarian, and we need to be honest about that. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be listening to this Twitter space. And I don't know how long we're going to get through this Twitter space because it was a long-ass Twitter space. I listened to a little bit of it during the movie night on Sunday because I just did. I wasn't watching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles on Sunday. Anyway, I listened to a little bit of it, and I have things to say about some of the things that Dave Smith and Angela McArdle and others said in this Twitter space. And I want to hear the whole thing. And so we're going to listen to this Twitter space, and I'm going to do my commentary on it. Did you see James Lindsay just re-aired a speech he gave in 2019 called "The Thing You Run Into When Your Beliefs Are False"? Yeah, isn't that funny? I did see that. Speaking of James, before we get into this Twitter space, and thank you for the super chat, Naruto. Speaking of James, and this is related to Dave Smith, which is why I bring it up. James has been having quite a day. James started his day by announcing that he is no longer going to allow non-verified accounts to reply to his tweets because they don't make him any money. That's nice, James. Very Griff-like of you. But the real problems for James started when he started fighting with Dave Smith and Tom Woods. This is hilarious, and this is part of why I decided to do the Dave Smith thing today. And again, I'm not on Dave Smith's side at all, but I'm also not on James Lindsay's side. I'm on the let them fight side. Actually, let me make this a little bit bigger for you so you can see. There we go. That's better. So Dave Smith says, well, some of you have seen YouTube remove the latest episode with Scott Horton. They claim we violated community standards, whatever the hell that means. Essentially, Dave Smith did an episode of his show with Scott Horton, who is a really big anti-war expert, and YouTube removed it. I don't really know why they moved it. I haven't been following it. James responded, maybe you aren't promoting peace so much as you're ranting again. Have the Yankees talk shit about the Dodgers? I don't know, Chris. I don't know, but thanks for the super chat. So James is picking a fight. This is another instance of like, James isn't even involved in this scenario at all, and James is picking a fight. Maybe you aren't promoting peace as much as you're ranting again. By the way, aren't we allowed to rant on YouTube? Isn't that like part of what YouTube is? And then Tom Woods, who I don't really have positive or negative feelings about Tom, to be honest, like just to be transparent. I don't like or dislike, don't really care. But a lot of people that are libertarians like him. Tom Woods responded, so James Lindsay thinks that ranting should be removed from YouTube? If not, what was the point of this dumb comment? And James responds, no, child. And then Tom Woods says, then your comment is irrelevant to the point of the post. And then James really fucking steps in it. And he said, he wants about Jews on a site that doesn't permit ranting about Jews. We don't live in a should land. We live in hell. And yes, I know he's Jew-ish with a hyphen. Now, first of all, James is revealing that he doesn't actually believe in free speech, which means he doesn't actually believe in classical liberal values, because he's laughing about the fact that Dave Smith got censored on YouTube. So everything that James has been saying about, we just need to be more classically liberal, bro, can we just throw all that right out the window? Because it was never real in the first place. Because, listen, man, I literally call myself a fascist these days. I'm allowed to say, haha, you got censored for something, because I'm to the point where I'm fully in favor of censoring speech that I don't like. You know, you might disagree with that, and I have reasons for that, and we can talk about that another day. In my heart of hearts, I'm a libertarian. I just don't think that libertarianism is going to solve the problem, because libertarianism sucks. I want to solve the problem, and if I have to resort to censoring speech I don't like to solve the problem that I want to solve, I'll do it, bro. So I can say, haha, you got censored, because I'm literally calling myself a fascist nowadays because of how badly the libertarians have fucked everything up. But James is running around saying he's a classical liberal and just wants to have free speech and values for everyone. And now he's laughing about Dave Smith's show getting pulled off of YouTube because Dave Smith said something about the Jews. And again, I don't even know what was said. But the bigger thing is that he called Dave Smith Jew-ish. Tom Woods' response to that: note that James calls Dave Jew-ish because if he doesn't agree with James, he can't really be Jewish. The same way a black person isn't black if he doesn't vote for Biden. Who is the woke one again? Oops, James. Oops. Oops. And then all sorts of people started going into James's replies, and he started spurging out on Twitter. And he's like, I just don't like you. You're an ignorant moron. And this is when he said he was going to set his replies to paid only. And like saying like, I am interesting and magnanimous. Okay, James. And he just keeps going on and on and on and on and on, fighting with people on his Twitter from a fight that he started. Oh, wait, we're going to get to that one in a second. We're going to get to that one in a second. He's tweeting about me too. When Tom Woods said that James was acting woke, James retweeted and said, they can't not take the bait. I love it. Yeah, as though this is some part of some master fucking plan. And then Dave Smith retweets James Lindsay and says, honestly, how pathetic is this guy? I rant about Jews. Really? And of course, I'm only Jew-ish now. How is this not identical to woke progressive argumentation? He might as well call me the black face of white supremacy. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong. They're not wrong about that at all. And so now James Lindsay is in a fight with Dave Smith and Tom Woods and all their fans, and they're all calling him woke. And I'm just like, hey guys, I told you so. I told you so. I told you this a year and a half ago. I told you this a while ago. But then, as you can see, as we continue to scroll down James's Twitter feed, look at this. James was also tweeting about us. Again. This is separate from Dave Smith. I just need to dispense with this. So, James's best friend, Psycho Poetry Painter, who's been stalking me for 4 years. The other day, James tweeted, why do so many right-wing accounts on here want me to shut up about communism? Isn't that really weird? And I responded and I said, why did you tell your audience to block my community members from posting videos about real communists? Isn't that really weird? Which is true. He did do that. And then Poetry Painter says, because you literally declared war on him and pledged to get your community to make new accounts to harass him in his comment section and use it to advertise yourself attacking him constantly and viciously. And James retweets this and said, this one wasn't a hard question. But it's not quite that simple, and we're going to get to that in a second. I just want to show you what else James said. James also said, on top of that nonsense, there's the obvious borderline personality disorder too. People have sent me so many clips of her yelling and snarling at her audience and threatening to end streams or kick them out if the poor suckers don't send money immediately, and they do. So let's just be clear. If you like my content and I teach you more than James Lindsay does, James wants you to believe that you're a poor sucker who is sending money to a cult leader with borderline personality disorder. James also retweeted another one of Poetry Painter's friends. Let's go down a little bit. Here it is. This is a psycho from the knitting community that's been stalking me along with Poetry Painter for a while. And she says, Carlin and her community harasses James Lindsay's live chat. Why does James block me in my community? Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Thank you, Trendlin. I promise I'll do. I do have a penguin shirt. I'm going to put up a penguin shirt, Trendlin. I promise you. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. Even if you're a pain in the ass, Trendlin, I appreciate you. I'm feeling uninspired about the design, okay? I do actually have a design. It's just not the design. It's not there yet. All right? I'm figuring it out. There's going to be a penguin shirt. I promise. But here's the thing. Here's the point I want to make about James Lindsay's position. Because James Lindsay and his audience are telling people the only reason that James is telling people to block Carlin's community is that Carlin's community came in and took over James's chat. let's play a little game called Fun with Calendars. Does everyone here know how a calendar works? It has dates. Some of those dates come before other dates. And so I want to take you back. I want to take you back to March 4th. And on March 4th, Reagan, who is in the chat right now, who knows more about the left than most people in James's audience, and it's not even close. Reagan sent a tweet in which she was correcting something that James said. James is missing critical points in his thread. To Marxists, queer is at odds with the normal. When they say the normal, they're talking about the system of capitalism. They created the gender binary as a social construct, and it goes on a little bit, and we can find the whole tweet if we need to. But essentially, you can see here, Reagan is posting a definition of the term queer and specifically relating it to the abolition of capitalism, which is what queer is. The Mary Nardini gang says queer liberation means the annihilation of capitalism. Every time you say normativity, that means capitalism. It means capitalist norms. We can go into any queer anarchist piece of literature that's been written in the last 30 years, and it's going to have capitalism all over it. Capitalism is the target. They're very open about this. James doesn't teach this to his audience, because James wants his audience to believe that queer is a Gnostic sex cult. Literally. And so on March 4th, Reagan very nicely and very gently said, queer is about abolishing capitalism. James retweeted it to his entire audience and said, this bullshit is tedious. It's also coordinated and bait. Block as enthusiastically as I do when you see it. March 4th, 2024. Now here's where the fun game begins. I have this episode on my podcast. Actually, let's just pull up the full episode. This is on my Substack. And I posted this on my Substack 2 days after we live streamed this, so I can actually bring up the original live stream and show you. This is the original live stream in which we took over James's chat. Hang on, I need to get through the advertisement here. This is the first time we ever took over James's chat. And on the post on the Substack, you can see I documented with screenshots exactly what we did in the chat, because we were not rude, we were not mean, we didn't argue with anyone or fight. We were not behaving like unhinged retards like James's audience does. All we did was give the proper definition of terms, and you can go and see the screenshots. You can go see the whole thing. I documented all of it. And in addition to that, we asked questions. That's part of what we do. We ask questions that James finds inconvenient. And you can go and see this, and it's all documented. And if you want to see how it played out live, you can watch it on this live stream, which is the cult number 176, Debunking James Lindsay's Gnostic Sex Cult Theory Live. Now, this was streamed, as you guys can see on the screen, on May 20th, 2024. May 20th. May 20th is 2.5 months after James started telling people to block my audience for saying things that he did not like. So when James is running around Twitter trying to make it seem like the only reason that he's telling people to block me and block my audience is because we are harassing him on live streams, what James is not telling you is he started telling people to block me and block my audience 2.5 months before I ever did anything on one of his streams. And so this is an example of James and his audience being completely and totally unhinged from reality at all, being completely intellectually dishonest, and shilling a narrative because they don't want people listening to me. Because when people listen to my work, they realize very, very quickly that James has lied to them. And James has lied to them a lot, and James has lied to them for a long ass time. So that's our game called Fun with Calendars. March 4th, 2024 is 2.5 months prior to May 20th, 2024. And isn't it great that on the internet, we have backup receipts for everything? So if anyone has any questions, you can just go back and look at what happened at the time. And anyone that knows how to read a calendar knows what happened here. Anyway, I've been ranting for an hour now. I want to do a couple quick reminders. Number one, if you want the best information about the left on the internet, head over to my Substack. That is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. Sign up for my Substack, $8 a month, $80 a year. We got some great content coming in the last, month of the year. I've got a lot of things planned, including the Unwoke Zine project. If you're new to my work, you can start at the New to My Work section and find out some great resources there to get you started with the work I do, exposing the radical revolutionary far left. We got a lot of cool things coming. I really do appreciate the support. I also want to remind people that we are currently doing our pre-Black Friday sale in the Unwoke Art store. That is unwokeart.com. Let me just put the link in the chat. And for another basically 18 hours up until Black Friday. So for the rest of the day today and all day tomorrow, all of these newest designs in the store are 25% off. So basically what happens is you click on a design, you can go and see what merch it is. So we've got Communism Kills Creativity. We've got Oppress Communists. We've got the Marxism is Evil signs and stickers and posters and stuff like that. We've got the Marxism is Evil merch. We've got the Santa Hates Socialist merch, including the wrapping paper. We've got the Communism Kills Christmas merch, including the wrapping paper. And we've got the ancient and iconic Land of Retardia map, courtesy of Bot. All the merch with those designs on it is 25% off for another 18 hours in the Unwoke Art store. Once it turns over to Black Friday, we're going to have a new deal come up. So keep an eye on my Twitter. Keep an eye on the Unwoke Art Twitter. It's just Unwoke Art on Twitter. And you can get access to these deals as we're leading up to the holidays. I have the best anti-communist merch on the internet. I would put it up against anyone's. And so you can pick up some great stuff, make your friends and family laugh, get some cool swag, some unique gifts you aren't going to get anywhere else, and you fund the work I'm doing, which I really appreciate. Now let's get into our stream. At long last, let us commence with the Twitter space where Dave Smith is trying to justify his behaviors. Yeah, it's going to be on sale. Don't worry about it. It's going to be on sale. We're going to do a whole whiteness means capitalism day. And we are listening to this courtesy of Biblical Anarchy, who is Jacob, I don't have any bad feelings towards. Sometimes I agree with him, sometimes I disagree with him. I overall think he's a good guy, but he streamed the whole Twitter space, so we're going to use his Twitter space to watch his stream to watch the space. Let's get this party started.
Candidate did just that. I imagine there are people who...
Oh, hang on.
For running...
Or is he just listening to it here?
But the world is...
like he's done in the past, and I'll be kind of in charge of bringing people in and out, and I will definitely keep my eye open for you, Kyle, to get you into the rotation. Well, again, it's vote and vote. And kept
hang on, I'm just trying to find the start.
Vote.
No offense, I don't want commentary. I just want to hear what happened.
Again, just nothing stuff. And roll the dice.
I just want to hear the space.
What's up, Jacob?
Hey, brother, how you doing?
Good. How are you, man? All right.
Oh, I'm great.
I'm just sending you this co-host invite now. You guys know how I am with these type of things.
At least you remembered to click record this time.
Oh, I did. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks to everybody who will listen to this after the fact. I guess why don't I start with this, and then I see Jacob, if you want to bring let's bring Angela, and I see Chase is here. Bring Chase up, bring Angela up. And then we could start with that. But I'll just say like a couple things before we get started. So basically, the reason why I was thinking of doing this was, so yesterday I was on Twitter here, and I started I guess I got into it with a few libertarians who were being critical of the libertarians who supported Donald Trump this year. Obviously, he rounded out his cabinet, and so people were making a big thing about the libertarian and his cabinet talk that he gave when he came to the convention. And so anyway, so I was arguing with a few
You
different
guys can hear
people,
that, right? On the
and
YouTube
I
end, just
was coming
give
across
me
what
some
I
ones
think
in the
were a
chat
lot of
that you
really
can hear
bad
everything.
arguments. And so I was kind of like, oh, well, maybe we should do a thing. Maybe a Twitter Spaces would be a good format where we could all kind of like, people can give their thoughts and we can hash it out a little bit. So I thought maybe that would be worthwhile. I will say
All
this,
right,
I'll
thanks,
try to be
guys.
brief, and then
Also, make sure
we
you
can start up.
thumbs up the
I
stream.
will
That way
just
more
say
people can
that
find it.
I do understand where the strategy that Angela kind of embarked on here in the Libertarian Party, and a lot of us libertarians, I know for myself and probably for a lot of other people who were supporting Donald Trump, was very much a different strategy for all of us. Most of us have not voted for major party candidates recently, and and obviously the strategy with the LP is something different than it's ever done before. I would just kind of implore a lot of libertarians to think about the fact that the world has changed. Truly drastically, the world has changed over the last few years. There's a lot of things you could point to of what really changed the world. I particularly think COVID.
It's fine to think that the world has changed. It is fine to reevaluate your priorities. But if your reevaluation of your priorities as the chair of the National Libertarian Party, which Angela McArdle is, and as a paid contractor of the National Libertarian Party, which is what Michael Heiss is, and as the standard bearer for libertarianism, which is the position that Dave Smith has put himself in. No one put him in that position. He did it himself. If your reevaluation of how the world has changed has led you to believe that the only way to make progress is to support Republicans, then you need to leave the Libertarian Party, stop taking money from the Libertarian Party, resign all positions in the Libertarian Party, and go become a Republican. It's really simple. You are allowed to evolve your view of the world. You are allowed to change your mind. I of all people support people taking in new information, reevaluating, changing their mind. But if that reevaluation leaves you fundamentally at odds with supporting libertarian candidates because you believe that the only way to make progress on libertarian values is to support Republicans, get the fuck out of the Libertarian Party and go become a Republican.
That's the thing I would really point to, but we could debate that. But the world has changed, and in a situation like that, I think you should at least be open to new strategies rather than kind of having this.
Hang on. Milo, you of all people should know that the left hates the Democrats and they don't implement their ideas. The Democrats don't implement the left's ideas. This is why the left hates the Democrats. This is why the left protests the Democrats. This is why the left doesn't vote for the Democrats, because the Democrats don't implement the left's ideas. That is exactly the fucking point.
Seems to me as almost a quasi-religious allergy to even suggesting that maybe just sitting in our corner and preaching our message is not the best use of this party, especially if we're doing that in a way that isn't really moving the needle and we have other options in front of us that potentially could really move the needle. So I'll leave it at that, and then if you want to say anything, Jacob, and then we can go to Angela and Chase.
Yeah, I won't tie up too much time. I think this was a good idea. I think that I mean I made a post earlier today where I just kind of in anticipation of this kind of said some of the same things you said, which is that I think there's a very fair argument to be made that like maybe this was not the strategy to have. Like you could have a good faith disagreement to say that no, we should have just vote LP no matter what, and or at the very least never vote for a duopoly candidate. But I think that's one sort of disagreement. I think it's another to say that because people like you and me, Tom Woods and others decided to vote in the vote for Donald Trump, sort of for our various reasons, that this means that we have at least in this moment, abandoned or compromised on our libertarian principles, as if, or as if like we did so naively without sort of understanding that a lot of the things he was promising and a lot of the potential goods that could have happened, it wasn't like we cast that vote with some sort of blind faith. We did so with our eyes open and just sort of weighing the pros and cons of what was presented to us. So that's all I wanted to say, and I'm excited to get into it.
Okay. Here, Jacob, you choose. Who do we go to first, Angela or Chase?
I would say, well, let's I don't know, let's give Chase the first word here. You made a post inviting him, and I think it's big on him to show
Sure.
up and speak. So, Chase, if you want
to, and I should say the same. I appreciate you being here, Chase.
Hey, thanks for having me. So, first, the question of your space, I don't think I can answer that. That's a you.
So I'm gonna say I think that I didn't hear what Chase Oliver said in this space. I joined after it when I was listening to it on Sunday. But I want to say my suspicion here is that Chase Oliver is going to be professional and appropriate and probably a whole hell of a lot nicer than I would be if I was in his position.
Question. Did you sell out your principles? That's a thing you have to answer. And I'm not here to answer that question or to push one way or the other. I am here to say that I think the strategy that Angela has presented and what we've gotten out of a Trump victory is not playing out the way we had anticipated. Many people thought we're going to get somebody in the Department of Education to tear it apart, somebody like Corey DeAngelis, or we're going to get Thomas Massey at Agriculture, or we're going to get somebody at Treasury. And what we've really gotten is Marco Rubio at Secretary of State. We have for all the grief I got over COVID stuff for running, we now have a Surgeon General who said the COVID vaccine is a gift from God. We have folks being put in place who are going to be in charge of Medicare and Medicaid that have went on their television show getting the COVID vaccine and touting boosters. And we have our president-elect of the United States who just put out a truth on Truth Social saying that he's looking forward to the 5th anniversary of COVID to celebrate how great of a job he did in Operation Warp Speed and how great his government did in the face of the China virus, right? And so I feel like a lot of the promises that were made to Angela, I assume, and others, are not being kept. This is something that should be indicative of the two-party system. It's not new when a duopoly candidate makes a promise and then completely walks back on that. And in fact, hey, I imagine many people came to the Libertarian Party because the duopoly candidate did just that. I imagine there are people who, in 1988, when they heard "read my lips, no new taxes," they voted for George H.W. Bush instead of Ron Paul, right? And then guess what? Taxes went up, right? New taxes appeared. I imagine there were people who heard when George W. Bush said we're going to have a kinder, gentler foreign policy in 2000, that we're going to be compassionate conservatives and we're going to cut government. I imagine there were people who voted for him over Harry Brown. He didn't do that. 9/11 happened, and then we got the war on terror. We even had, John Hospers, our first presidential candidate, supporting George W. Bush in 2004. right? So it's not new for libertarians within the party, within the movement, to at one time or another say, hey, I think I'm going to trust this candidate to cut government. I don't fault people for doing it. What I hope we can do is recognize that it's a failure of a strategy, because ultimately what's going to happen is what we're seeing right now is the same establishment people are putting themselves into the Trump White House, into the Trump transition team. And we're not seeing a libertarian in the cabinet. RFK does not count. There are things that I agree with
Exactly.
RFK on. Heck, I want to eat healthier food. I want to have healthier living. But I don't think RFK regulating that through the HHS is going to be the best way to do it. I would argue that there's more libertarian solutions to getting bad chemicals out of our food, out of our water, getting bad drug policy, just completely removing it from the government. But what we're seeing now is, unfortunately, and I want to say this, I pray to God that he frees Ross. Like, I feel very disappointed that we don't have a libertarian in the cabinet.
So I want to comment on this too, because this, quite frankly, is another thing that has really pissed me off about Angela and Michael Heiss. And I haven't heard Dave Smith do it, but it wouldn't surprise me if he had done it, is the whole thing about freeing Ross Ulbricht. Now listen, there is not a single fucking libertarian that I can think of that is opposed to freeing Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht, for people who don't know, is someone who's been in jail for like over 10 years now, that got put in jail for building a website in which people made transactions with each other that weren't always necessarily the most legal nature. But Ross Ulbricht wasn't involved in those transactions. All he did was build a website, and they put him in jail for the rest of his life for it. And his mother has been fighting like hell ever since he went to jail to get him freed, to get him pardoned. There is not a single person that opposes the pardon of Ross Ulbricht. There's not a single person who wouldn't be overjoyed if Ross Ulbricht gets pardoned. Donald Trump promised to pardon Ross Ulbricht on day one. I have questions about that because, quite frankly, Donald Trump could have pardoned Ross Ulbricht at the end of his last term, and he didn't. I saw a tweet that Ross Ulbricht sent, or whoever's running his Twitter account sent, saying, I'm getting used to the idea that I'm going to be coming home soon, or something to that effect. I pray that Donald Trump keeps his promise to free Ross Ulbricht on day one. And I don't think there's a single person who disagrees with that. However, what Angela and Michael have done over the past several months is they have used Ross Ulbricht as emotional blackmail to try to get anyone who might disagree with voting for Donald Trump to bend the knee and vote for Trump, because they say, if you don't vote for Trump, then you don't care about freeing Ross. Or if you question them at all, what, you don't care about freeing Ross? It's emotional fucking blackmail. And it's intellectually dishonest, and it's fucking gross. And you know what? The reality is, and again, I say this, I had a very dear friend in prison for a crime he didn't commit for a very long time. This is I am close to this type of issue, okay? I would have loved to see my friend get out of prison before he did. He spent 8.5 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. But you don't use that shit as emotional blackmail to get people to vote for a political candidate. And we do need to face facts that if Ross Ulbricht gets pardoned, the only people that it will actually impact are Ross Ulbricht and Ross Ulbricht's family. And that is important. Don't get me wrong, but we're not talking about major national policy change. We're not talking about overhauling the criminal justice system that wrongfully put him in prison in the first place. He's still going to be guilty of the crime. Nothing's going to change in the criminal justice system. It's going to impact him and his family. And that's important, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the level to which Michael Heiss and Angela McArdle have used this as emotional blackmail to try to get people to abandon the National Party's candidate because they're sore fucking losers to go and vote for Donald Trump, I think is just disgusting. And honestly, one of the biggest upsides I see of Ross Ulbricht getting freed is not just that he's going to get to go home to his family, which would be amazing, But it's that Angela McArdle and Michael Heiss never get to use this as emotional blackmail again. Because when they just say, free Ross, free Ross, free Ross, free Ross, free Ross, to every single person that questions the wisdom of them dedicating the resources of the Libertarian Party first to RFK and then to Donald Trump, that's emotional blackmail, it's gaslighting, and it's fucking gross, and it's beneath anyone who says they're a principled person.
I hope that January 20th, Ross is free. It does not require much action. You only have to say you're pardoning him, and then you are pardoned. Like that, literally, the federal government has to act on your behalf. You can sign it the day of January 20th, and he needs to be held to account if Trump does not sign that. And I hope everyone in this space will be holding Donald Trump to account to free Ross Ulbricht. No matter what side of the spectrum you came on, no matter whether you thought this was a good strategy or whether you voted Libertarian this time, whether you sat out the election, whatever. But what I'm seeing right now is a failure of Trump to meet his end of the bargain, which is something he's done in business. It's something he did in his first term. You know, he said he was going to cut the deficit, the debt in half in 8 years. He blew up the deficit and debt. You know, he has said a lot of things. But I don't fault people for wanting to take a chance on things. You know, I just hope we recognize now, and especially over the next 4 years, as there's going to be a lot, I imagine, there might be some good things happening. Occasionally, good things do happen. But on the whole, I think this is going to be a continuation of more of the same stuff that Trump gave us in the first term, and more of that same kind of style of governance. And while we might have some good victories, I think we as libertarians need to recognize that no, the Republican Party will not get more libertarian. When libertarians go into the Republican Party, they ultimately have to compromise, and they become more Republican.
Exactly.
The same as if a Green Party candidate.
Chase is 100% correct here. When libertarians when libertarians go into the Republican Party, it does not make the Republican Party more libertarian at all in any way, because Republicans don't care. Republicans don't listen. Republicans don't have principles. They're reactionary to whatever's happening right in front of them. They have no positive forward-looking vision. They don't stand for anything. I'm not saying you as a person. I'm saying in general, this is how the Republican machine operates. It is a perpetual grift for everyone who's on the upper end of that machine. It just is. And so libertarians going into the Republican Party is not going to make the Republican Party more libertarian. All they're doing is using the libertarians for their votes.
A Green Party person tried to go in the Democratic Party. They don't make the party more green. They become more of a Democrat. It's unfortunate. I mean, look at just Thomas Massey, the Jones Act. I mean, right?
Chase, if you don't mind, let me just, and I'll give you a chance to respond to me, but I just want to respond to some of the things you say there. And again, I just want to say I really appreciate you coming on. I certainly agree with some of the things that you said, and I certainly agree that we should keep pressuring Donald Trump to free Ross Ulbricht, and hopefully that happens. I think you framed this a little late, as if the calculation that a lot of libertarians, by supporting Donald Trump, were making was that we were blindly believing his promises, akin to believing that George H.W. Bush was going to stand by his pledge of no new taxes. That is certainly not what I've ever said, and that's really not what any libertarian I've heard has really been saying. Like, Donald Trump made these promises to us, and he is going to keep these promises.
Really? Really? Oh, really? Hang on. Give me 1 second, please. Really? Angela never believed these promises? Really? Hang on. One moment. Angela never said that she believed these promises. Really? Then why do I have this tweet from Angela that I posted in the Libertarian Party discussion group on Facebook? Hang on, let me see if I can make that bigger for you guys to actually see it. No, apparently that's not going to work. I don't know why it doesn't work, but it doesn't work. Maybe I can just go like this. Can I go like this? Oh, there we go. That's better. That's better. That's getting bigger. Now we're cooking with gas, aren't we? I have too many windows open on my desktop. Can't even see nothing. There we go. On November 13th, 2024, if Chase Oliver had worked out a deal with Trump, he would be at Mar-a-Lago right now negotiating cabinet picks. What a wild timeline that would have been. Who's our Libertarian in the cabinet? I don't know yet. Angela McArdle sold out the Libertarian National Party to go to Mar-a-Lago and accomplish nothing. Really think about that. Listen, man, I've had opportunities to go to Mar-a-Lago. It's not as though, like, if you're in this space, you can figure out a way to go to Mar-a-Lago if you want to. You really can. I don't give a flying fuck about going to Mar-a-Lago. I don't give a flying fuck about this clout chasing bullshit. What I care about is accomplishing things on the internet and getting people to look at what the left is doing and teaching real people what's going on. I don't care about schmoozing with the upper crust conservative elite at Mar-a-Lago where I'd have to get up all dressed up in a fucking dress and show off my tits and have my hair real big, have to get my makeup did, have to wear all sorts of shapewear because, you know, you're going to conservative, you got to wear shapewear that sucks you all in so you have a certain look. I don't care about any of that. Angela might care about those things. Which is ironic considering part of the talking points for why the Mises Caucus had to take over the Libertarian Party was that the woke leadership of the Libertarian Party pre-Mises Caucus was just too close to the Washington, D.C. Beltway. And we weren't going to be like that. The Mises Caucus wasn't going to be like that. Now Angela's talking about going to fucking Mar-a-Lago. Don't tell me that promises weren't believed when it was plain and clear that they did believe them, or the very minimum is that they were selling them to the members of the party as though they were believed. So Dave Smith, full of shit, confirmed.
Promises. That's not exactly it. But if you're making the argument, as you just did, that, well, look at the results of this. He said this, and we haven't gotten a libertarian candidate in there. Therefore, this strategy was a failure. The issue with that is that you're saying it's a failure because you don't have the tangible result of a libertarian in the cabinet.
Yes, that was the promise.
But the problem with that argument is that we don't have limitless options here. The libertarians essentially had the option to vote for Kamala Harris, vote for Trump, vote for you, vote for a Green Party candidate, write in somebody, or stay home. Those are essentially the options. And even you yourself just conceded maybe we get Ross free from this. So if that's the case,
see, there it is.
Then in terms of the consequential...
There it is. There it is again. There's the emotional fucking blackmail. If we just get free Ross, then it's all worth it. Nothing else matters but free Ross. Don't you want a free Ross? Don't you want Ross Ulbricht out of prison? Don't you want Ross Ulbricht to be able to go home to his mother? That's the emotional fucking blackmail piece that's been going on for months, and it's bullshit, and it's gaslighting.
Strategy argument, voting for Trump already wins. It already wins because we got something. We get nothing out of voting for you. We get nothing out of voting third party. On top of that,
so Dave Smith has just made the case that there is no reason to vote for a libertarian presidential candidate ever. We get nothing out of voting for you because you're not going to win. Therefore, there's no reason to ever vote for a Libertarian Party presidential candidate ever. Therefore, why don't all of you just get the fuck out of the Libertarian Party and go join the Republicans? If Dave Smith really believes we're never going to get anything out of a Libertarian presidential candidate, so there's no reason to vote for them, then get the fuck out of the Libertarian Party and go join the Republicans. Let people who actually want to try run the party. But if you think there's no point in having a Libertarian presidential candidate, then go join the Republicans. Heads up, DSA is having a lot. Ooh, I just signed up for another call earlier today. Thank you, Jozo. I appreciate the super chat. We will look into that for sure.
Assuming we get nothing else, the argument most of us were making was we got Kamala Harris stopped. That was number one, the biggest threat that needed to be taken care of. And then number two, you could say the Republican Party is not going to get any more libertarian. I completely agree with you on that. I don't think the establishment of the Republican Party is going to get less hawkish or more libertarian or anything like that. But we have, with Doge and like what Cutting government spending has been reasserted into public consciousness. That's a win that we don't get if Donald Trump didn't win the election. And obviously Bobby Kennedy at Health, Tulsi Gabbard at DNI. There were just no possibilities like this with any other strategy except for Trump winning. So I think the consequentialist argument falls a bit short. And then the other thing I'll say is that, Chase, look, man, you bring up that these guys were celebrating COVID and all of the crazy tyrannical measures
You
as
were
like a
celebrating
reason why they
COVID
shouldn't be
too.
in government. But at the same time, man, such a huge part of the reason why you couldn't pull libertarian support was because you were right there with them. And you may not have ever advocated government force, but you were right there bragging about masking up by Thanksgiving.
Being libertarian means that you get to make your own fucking decisions. If Chase Oliver was opposed to government-mandated vaccines, which he was, if Chase Oliver was opposed to government-mandated masking, which he was, then Chase Oliver gets to make whatever personal decision for himself that he fucking wants. If Chase Oliver wants to wear a mask, he's allowed to wear a mask. If Chase Oliver doesn't want to wear a mask, he's allowed to not do that. If Chase Oliver wants to get vaccinated, he's allowed to do that. If Chase Oliver doesn't want to get vaccinated, he's allowed to do that. If Chase Oliver wants to wear a fucking rainbow shirt because he's gay and he wants young gay kids to feel accepted, even if I don't agree with it, Chase Oliver's allowed to wear that fucking rainbow shirt. If Chase Oliver wants to wear a different shirt, he's allowed to wear that too. The issue with libertarian principles is government mandates. Beyond that, you are allowed to make whatever personal decision you want, and the fact that Dave Smith just said, listen, bro, listen, Chase, you were masking up at Thanksgiving. He's allowed to do that. Dave is just a con Inc. shill LARPing as a libertarian, just as Malay is a Zionist, also LARPing as a libertarian. High-profile libertarians are bad. I mean, listen, like, Malay's done some good stuff in Argentina, but, like, the Zionist shit really pisses me off. Dave Smith, I think, is interested in branding and money, and that's all he's really interested in. I don't actually think that Dave Smith has principles.
Of 2020, and so
let me speak to both of those.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so let me speak to that. So first and foremost, you know me, I've never advocated government mandate anything. I think that's ridiculous, and so I have not been celebrating lockdowns and mandates the way Trump has been, saying Operation Warp Speed and his government did great job, a great job in 2020. I was very much opposed to that. Now, as for the wearing a mask in Thanksgiving, I was responding to a tweet of somebody who said, literally, small gatherings at holidays are going to kill all of us. It's the worst thing that anybody could ever do. And I was saying, listen, I'm gonna meet with my family on Thanksgiving. I'm not canceling the holidays to see my people. Now, one way or the other, like, this has been taken wildly out of context, considering many of the people that Trump himself and the people he had in government and the people he was backing.
Exactly. They took everything Chase ever said wildly out of context in order to smear him because they were sore losers that got pissed off that they lost.
We're far more supportive of Operation Warp Speed, of the vaccine, of the mandates, of the lockdowns than I ever was. I traveled across the country to speak to people. I spoke to business people who lost their businesses to COVID, for Christ's sake. Like, I spoke to people who had to say goodbye to their family members through plate glass or through plastic in nursing homes because of this. Like, I am keenly aware of exactly how fucked up the government was during the COVID era. And that's one of the things that's really, upset me about this whole race, is that for an entire segment of the party, they got this false impression. And really, I felt like nothing I could have said, nothing I could have done during the campaign would have changed those minds.
True.
And all it would have done is taken time away from me to speak libertarian messaging outward to people who hadn't heard the libertarian message yet.
That's exactly what I said. Dave Smith and Angela McArdle and Michael Heiss and the entire fucking Mises Caucus went out of their way to smear Chase Oliver irrevocably. to the point where there was nothing that Chase Oliver could have said. There was nothing he could have done. There was no podcast he could go on to clear his name. There was nothing that could have been done because Dave Smith and Michael Heiss and the Mises Caucus and Angela McArdle were pissed off that they didn't control the presidential candidate, and so they punished Chase Oliver as badly as they possibly could for it. And he is exactly right. There's nothing he could have done.
And that is really why I didn't want to have those fights. And I'm not going to have those fights because I've never supported mandates or lockdowns. Now, you can point to a tweet or two, and I can, I had done this with several state executive committees and others, had to go tweet by tweet through a lot of things. But what I think is ultimately the idea here is we're going to have to see exactly what Trump does over the next 4 years. If we look to his record, I don't think a lot of libertarian things happen. The COVID state started under him. We expanded drone bombing under him. We didn't end any wars. I know we didn't start any new land wars, but we didn't end any either. And now we have a guy who really wants to go to war with China and Marco Rubio. And I'm worried about this kind of stuff. And I'm an optimist. I think that ultimately the world will end up better than it is today. And that has nothing to do with government. But besides that point, I can point to the fact that it's a little hypocritical that so many people who cheerleaded voting for Donald Trump, knowing that he is the guy who instituted Operation Warp Speed. He's the guy who took away vaccine liability from people under his government. He's the person who, was okay with locking down states across the country. And for me to just say I wore a mask at Thanksgiving to be in any way equitable to those kinds of crimes that Donald Trump perpetrated against the nation.
Chase, but this is the thing, man. And I'm sorry, I'm going to bring Angela in here in a second because I know you've been waiting. But the thing is that this is just a straw man.
It's
Nobody's
not a
making
straw
the calculation of was Donald Trump as president of the United States a failure on COVID versus your position on COVID. The point is that there's a completely different standard and a different bar for somebody to be the Libertarian Party presidential candidate and unite libertarians behind their message. When you have no conceivable chance of actually winning, there's just a different standard for why you run a third party race. And so the question isn't.
And Dave Smith thinks that he gets to be the arbiter of what that standard is. The delegates at the national convention are the arbiter of what the standard for the libertarian presidential candidate is. It is not Dave Smith that gets to decide who passes the bar. It is the delegates that elect the presidential candidate at the national fucking convention. And those delegates did not pick Michael Rechtenwald. Those delegates picked Chase Oliver. And again, this is all because Dave Smith originally told everyone for years he was going to run for president, and then he backed out to buy a dream house for his wife because he had to do more comedy dates to buy a dream house for his wife. And buying a dream house for his wife was just more important than keeping his promise to the Mises Caucus. If Dave Smith had run for president, he probably would have gotten nominated and he could have run whatever fucking campaign he wanted. But not only did he not run for president, they picked Michael Rechtenwald. Michael Rechtenwald made a mistake at the convention that cost him the nomination. And again, my heart broke for him when that happened. I wanted him to win, but them's the breaks. Dave Smith wanted to be able to control Michael Rechtenwald and get his messaging out there through Michael Rechtenwald. Dave Smith knew he could not control Chase Oliver because Chase Oliver doesn't give a fuck. Chase Oliver won, Dave Smith lost. That is the bar for who the Libertarian presidential candidate is. It's not whoever Dave Smith says. Because Dave Smith obviously didn't have the pull to get his guy nominated in the first place.
Listen, the thing is like this, okay? This is almost how I'll say it. It's like you're not... The stuff that you were posting, which I understand you kind of don't want to focus on, but it's not that.
And this, by the way,
it's just
this is where you guys can all really see Dave Smith sharing himself as an intellectually dishonest grifter. But Chase, you had these tweets in 2020. You just had these tweets. You had a tweet, Chase, where you said you were masking at Thanksgiving, and that is just a bridge too far. And I know you don't want to talk about this tweet where you said that you were wearing a mask at Thanksgiving, even though you never supported government mandates, and I can agree that you never supported government mandates, which is really what libertarian principles are. You made a personal decision to wear a mask at Thanksgiving, and that is just a bridge too far, Chase.
it seems that when it really matters, you kind of fell for the propaganda. And part of falling for the propaganda is also just kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's being a little bit worried that you're going to get like a lot of people in your social circles angry at you if you were to stand up to that. There's a lot of things when you just kind of, I mean, listen, in the year of like sweeping totalitarianism based on pure pseudoscience, where every good libertarian that I know saw through it like so quickly and was just railing against the whole thing. It's like to even like have these series of tweets up, it really does just come off like, oh, you missed the boat on this. Now, obviously, Donald Trump did a lot of bad things, but at the same time, it's just apples to oranges. No libertarian I know, no libertarian who voted for Donald Trump is sitting here and saying his first term was a huge success. He didn't do very unlibertarian things. Many of us, it took us a long time to even consider the possibility of voting for this guy because some of the things he did were so unforgivable. But it was just hard to deny that in this moment, in terms of a political strategy, this seemed like the one that made sense. Here, Angela, you come in, and then Chase, you'll have as much time as you want here to jump back in.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So, can you guys hear me okay? I'm on my computer.
Yes, we hear you.
I can hear you fine.
I have a lot to say to my libertarian critics, and I want to address them more so than I want to address Chase. You know, I think the goalposts have shifted considerably in the cabinet conversation. I want to remind everyone that Trump never promised an entirely libertarian administration. Those of you pointing and screeching about every single pick, like it's...
This is Angela moving the guardrails. Guys, can we just be honest here? Trump never promised a libertarian administration. That's not what anyone has said. Trump absolutely, on video, promised a libertarian cabinet member at the Libertarian National Convention. 100%. You guys can go find the video. I'm not going to go find it right now, but I could if I wanted to. It was as clear as day. I'm going to put a libertarian in my cabinet and in many senior level positions. That's what Trump said. Angela, because she failed to get the libertarian cabinet member, is now shifting the guardrails to say, well, we all knew that this wasn't going to be a libertarian administration. So she's being intellectually dishonest.
It's not correct. I have repeatedly said we will only get only one cabinet position and positions underneath that. No one promised you a better GOP either. I said we will get one, and we will have to keep fighting for more every election cycle.
0.
And I also said that if Trump only keeps one promise, if he only frees Ross, it will still be a win.
If he just free Ross. Don't you want to free Ross? You're a horrible person if you don't want to free Ross. We have to vote for Donald Trump because he's going to free Ross. There's the emotional blackmail. Again, if he only does this one thing, then it will all be worth it.
And the most progress we have ever made at the federal level. Now, I will say that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joined the party as a lifetime member. He joined, he joined as a lifetime member. Kennedy is our guy, like it or not. He's putting our people into the administration.
There it is. Robert F. Kennedy paid a lot of money to the Libertarian Party, and therefore Robert F. Kennedy is a libertarian. That's literally the argument Angela's making. Hang on. Texting someone. Okay, there we go. That's literally the argument Angela's making. Robert F. Kennedy bought the title of libertarian when he gave a lot of money to the Libertarian Party. She hasn't addressed principles at all. She hasn't addressed any of the complaints that people have with RFK being more authoritarian than libertarian. But he paid money for that title of libertarian, and therefore he is a libertarian cabinet member. This is the argument being made by the head of the National Party, and it is disgusting. Nothing to do with principle at all.
The man joined the party. He sought our nomination. He didn't get it. And after that, he joined as a lifetime member. After he lost.
Robert F. Kennedy got like 9 votes for president to be the Libertarian Party nominee. He was eliminated in the first round. No one wanted him. because he's not a libertarian.
Our nomination. He's gone to bat for me and for all of us with the incoming administration. I'm going to bat for him right now. And he had leverage, by the way, because he dropped out and endorsed Donald Trump. That's why he and his team are at Mar-a-Lago right now, going to bat for libertarians against the bad actors in the Senate and AIPAC and all the other people who are pressuring to try to push us out. And I am so grateful for him for the work that he's doing and the ground he's forging for us. And this is one of the reasons also that I have so aggressively defended the LNC's decision to engage in a joint fundraising agreement with him, which we are still doing. I have, by the way, already done reference calls for some of the libertarians who have applied to be in the administration and filled out many applications. And
why doesn't Angela quit the Libertarian Party and go apply to be in the administration? If Angela cares so much and she's got this great relationship with RFK, maybe Angela can go work for RFK at HHS. If Angela cares so much about using, like, getting involved in the Republican Party through as a libertarian to improve libertarian influence, then she needs to quit her job as chair of the party and go work for RFK at HHS as part of the administration. This isn't hard.
Referrals myself, that is happening, and a lot of those picks are up to Kennedy himself. Go ahead and scream. Go ahead and
work
scream
for him,
that
Angela.
Kennedy isn't the one true
Go
libertarian.
work for him.
It's not good enough that he displayed moral courage during a national crisis where our two most recent LP presidential candidates were wearing masks and talking about social distancing, outdoor-only events, taking the Fauci ouchie. You are all possessed. You know, and I want to say, you know,
and you're possessed. You are literally possessed by derangement syndrome if you disagree with anything Angela McArdle says or does. That's the greatest argument of all. According to Angela McArdle, I'm literally possessed with Trump derangement syndrome. I was campaigning for Donald Trump in 2020 when Angela McArdle was part of the party that was campaigning for Joe Jorgensen. But I have Trump derangement syndrome. Sure, Angela. Okay, sure. Yeah, okay.
I'm speaking to my critics right now. You suffer from ideological paralysis. You are possessed by a very unproductive demon, shackled down in paralysis and unable to move because you can't find the purely libertarian path forward. That's not how politics works. Who here has ever tried to get a job in the administration? Who here helped me vet candidates for a cabinet position? Who made calls and gave me names? Only a few of you. Thank you to those of you who did. Do not complain about the cabinet position if you do not help us try to achieve it. At least don't complain about the work that
Honey, you were the one that put yourself in the position of chair of the Libertarian Party. You didn't have to run for it again. If all you wanted to do was to get people into the Trump administration, you could have stepped aside at the national convention this past, May, and just not run for chair again and thrown all your weight behind RFK and gone to work for his campaign and go work for him in the administration. You could have left the Libertarian Party alone and let someone else lead it. No one has any obligation to work for you, Angela. No one has any obligation to volunteer for you when you obviously don't appreciate it.
I've done. If you sat on the sidelines and sulked, don't complain. I don't want to hear it. It is very hard to get confirmation. Yes, I want Corey DeAngelis in there to shut down the Department of Education. Remember what happened to Kavanaugh in the Senate confirmation. It is an absolute crucible. You don't get a cabinet position by waiting for someone who publicly promised it to materialize it for you. You get it by fighting for it. I'm communicating with people at Mar-a-Lago every day. I am calling senators, contacting every person of influence I know, vetting and giving references to get our people in the administration. This sort of attitude is why the left wins. They take their wins. They sell it.
No, Angela. No. You have no fucking clue why the left wins because you don't understand the left either. What you're doing right now is trying to cover your ass because you got outplayed, because the Trump campaign used you for votes. You were lied to get libertarian votes and to shill for fucking MAGA. And it didn't work out. And now you're playing a game called cover your ass. But this is not why the left wins, because the left doesn't even control the Democratic Party. The left hates the Democratic Party. Of course, Angela McArdle doesn't know this because she's not smarter than any typical conservative.
Celebrate them, and then they immediately keep fighting, and they never stop. And so many of you guys are just ready and excited to lose. It's like you want to lose, and and then at the same time, you're so afraid of losing that you can't even play the game. I think some of you, like, with all due respect, you need to get hit in the face with a soccer ball.
I think Angela needs
I'm
to get
charging
hit in the
into
face
battle with a
several
sword, and you're
fucking
sitting on the
soccer
sideline
balls.
saying you can't fight because, like, your socks are dirty. It's just the most ideologically, like, dead position anybody could take. I'm fighting neocon senators, AIPAC, special interest groups, literal intel agencies, and you're bitching at me on the internet and moving the goalpost, saying this was supposed to be an entirely...
If all that was true, if Angela was in all these epic battles and she was single-handedly fighting AIPAC and she's single-handedly fighting intelligence agencies and she's providing a massive list of libertarians and giving references to be in the administration, she's doing all this shit, there's no chance in this universe she would have taken time out for a Twitter space. If all of what Angela just said was true and she has all these more important battles to fight, she's not going on a Twitter space on Sunday night. That's just reality. Angela wants everyone to think that she's a lot more important and she's a lot more influential than she is. And I personally think Angela's about to get hit in the face with the fact that she no longer has any leverage over anything. Angela had leverage before the election. Angela had the ability to convince libertarians to not vote in their best fucking interest, but rather to shill their vote for Donald Trump for the promise of a cabinet position that never fucking materialized. But she had leverage before the election. She has no leverage now. There's no reason for Trump to listen to her now. There's no reason for anyone at Mar-a-Lago to listen to her now. There's no reason for anyone in the administration to listen to her now. Susie Wiles, who is Trump's chief of staff, sure as shit isn't going to listen to Angela. She's just trying to make it seem like she's a whole lot more important and a whole lot more influential than she is to cover her ass.
Libertarian administration. You can certainly complain, but don't make shit up. And don't complain at me.
You're the one
when
making
you whine
shit
and
up,
sit on the
Angela.
sidelines doing nothing. I'm going into DC to lop off some heads.
Yeah, okay.
You guys are bitching like a woman
Yeah,
who broke
okay.
a nail.
Yeah,
You
okay,
can't lift your
Angela.
sword because you might break your libertarian ideology
Yeah.
fingernail.
Yeah.
If you want to win politics, you have to fight for your position and you have to keep fighting. It is not a social club. What it is morphed
She's
into is
so
wrong.
full of shit.
It should not be a social club. Politics is a vicious Game of Thrones world with shifting alliances, powerful outside forces, and it calls for courageous men and women. We have a crisis of leadership in this party and this movement. There are two men in this party.
Angela McArdle has been the leader of the party since 2022. We have a crisis of leadership in the party? Yeah. Angela McArdle has been the leader of the Libertarian Party for 2.5 years. When are we going to fix that crisis of leadership, Angela? Because you're in the power position.
I'm going to say that I have tremendous respect for, even though they hate each other, ironically. And that's Maj Touré and Jeremy Kauffman. They are not afraid of shit. Maj is a man. He is not afraid of shit. He is not afraid of conflict. He knows how to fight. He knows how to deal with confrontation. Jeremy Kauffman, not afraid of shit. He will say whatever he believes. He'll go to battle for it. He will say some wild shit about politicians on social media, have feds knocking on his door, and he will tell them to fuck off on camera and humiliate them. When Trump was shot, why did he just throw his fist up in the air and refuse to go down? Because you never signal weakness and you've always got to fight. And that's a lesson that we need to learn. We've got to show courage. And I'm going to continue to fight because I got a fighting spirit. So instead of bitching and complaining, I invite you all to pick up your swords and join me in this battle.
All right. Here, Chase, you have your hand up. You can respond.
Yeah, I appreciate, I appreciate all that Angela just said. Just some questions that I might have, and I'll reserve that till the end here. But I do feel like a lot of people are working, and maybe if we weren't working for this strategy, we were working as libertarians, as candidates, doing that work. That shouldn't be discounted either. It's no easy task running for office. I spoke to a lot of candidates who are running against Democrats and Republicans against.
Thomas, the rule generally in my chat is that you will only chat in information that's relevant to what's being discussed. Now, I've let this go on for a while, but you're chatting in a lot of information that has nothing to do with anything. I'm finding it very distracting. I'm asking for it to stop. Only what's relevant to what's being discussed, bro. I'm not asking for the sun and the moon and the stars.
MAGA folks and non-MAGA folks alike. I just feel like we do have shifting goalposts here. And I don't think we ever expected to have the entire cabinet to be libertarian. We expected for one libertarian cabinet nominee. And we've seen the cabinet filled out, all the cabinet secretaries, and we don't have one. And we had been told by, Angela in previous interviews that said she was looking at like it was going to be education or agriculture. I don't know what happened there. I can't speak to what Angela's working on. But what I can say is it feels like Trump has let back on his promise to put a libertarian in a cabinet position. I would ask Angela, once I finish here, do you feel like Trump has let that promise be broken? Like, do you feel like that promise is being broken?
Chase Oliver's being so nice.
If so, like, what can we do about it? And I do want to make sure our party functions well. I want to make sure we have a thriving party, one that's professionalized, one that's growing, one that's able to actually rise up and have more of an impact in elections, not just presidential elections all over the country. I saw some great candidates doing that work, and we need to have a party nationally, state affiliates across the country that can support those candidates.
Bot. Breaking news bot. Slime Obsidian is starting a Black Friday sale with 30% off all slime. Breaking slime news.
Candidates to put the ideas out there to shift the Overton window. My question, for Dave, and you can answer the question too if you feel like Trump has maybe broken that promise. But my question is do you feel like, and I do want Angela's comment on this. I've seen now people are saying online that the reason why Trump hasn't put a nominee in is because, well, we had a libertarian candidate for president. The fact that I ran for president is the reason why we don't. But remarks that you have made on election day and post-election day saying that we're working on it, we're getting it, we're in contact with the team. I just find that those two narratives to not be like parallel to one another. And so my question to each of you is like, do you feel that Trump has broken the promise here? I feel like he has. Like, I would have loved to have seen a Thomas Massey at agriculture, or to see a Corey DeAngelis, or to see a libertarian somewhere. Like,
I don't even know.
God, Secretary of State would have been awesome.
Honestly, Chase, man, like, and I don't even mean this like in an insulting
I don't even know
way,
why
man,
we're
but
talking
even
about
the
this,
question
bro.
of like, do I feel like he's broken a promise is like the most fucking blue-pilled question I've ever heard in my life. Like, I don't know, maybe.
I don't even know why we're
kinda.
talking
He
about
made
this,
he made
bro.
a commitment,
Did
and
he
he hasn't.
really?
Shouldn't you be pissed? Shouldn't you be pissed
No.
about that?
I mean,
Chase,
no.
Chase, hold on, let me just say this. Listen,
No?
man, it's like, first of all,
Angela just said that we shouldn't be pissed that Trump made us a promise and then broke it. Dayson's like, bro, I don't even know why you're asking the question of if Trump broke a promise. I just don't even know why we're talking about this. Why is this even relevant, Chase? And Angel's like, no, we shouldn't be pissed. This is the leadership of the Libertarian Party.
in a very Trumpian, very politician-y way, I'm not even exactly sure what he promised. Like, he said, if you guys support me, then I'll do this. And kind of, did we really support him, or did he really do this? None of this is really the point. Like, it all kind of like, the fact is that there are some positives that come out of Donald Trump being in there. We have some positives. We have some libertarian or close to libertarian, or at least outside of the corrupt.
It's the recording. It's not me that's pausing right now. It's the recording. Jacob is so fucking around trying to fix it. Well, that's
I
a
don't know what
shame.
happened there. Let me hop back in.
Come back, sound. Come back. This happens on Twitter Spaces all the time.
Shattered,
There
and
it is.
everybody admits that the alternative, internet show is now really the mainstream, and now we've cracked the state's, like propaganda apparatus, and libertarians have a real seat at the table in this new media landscape, much more than we ever did in the old CIA-controlled landscape. And so, hey, that's kind of a win. Maybe he comes through on none of this. already. He's at least appointed Tulsi to DNI and Bobby at the health department. It's like, wow. And he's got Vivek Ramaswamy
Bobby.
and Elon Musk, who's tweeting Milton Friedman in his ear. Ron Paul's advising the board. There is just no argument that we at least got something. And maybe Lynn Olbrook's nightmare comes to an end. That's something. That's the point to this. It's not, did he keep every, no, I don't know anybody. If I was on the phone with here, we got some more speakers who I'll let in here. But if I was on the phone with Clint or Scott or any of these guys, it's not like I would ever been like, I guarantee you he's going to keep his promises because he made promises. He's a politician. He's Donald Trump. Of course he'll say anything, but at least and by the way, look, we may have lost this thing. I shouldn't even say that. We did in many profound ways lose this thing, but there was a real fight that was put up to try to keep the war hawks out, and they lost out. Don't get me wrong. They lost out, but it's almost like this libertarian, it's so weird for people in the Libertarian Party to then turn around if something doesn't work out and be like, ha ha, you lost. See, it didn't work. I watch these libertarians like with glee celebrating that Trump didn't put a libertarian in the cabinet so that they can go, see, told you so. I did nothing and feel good about myself. And it's like, we tried, dude, and we lost that fight. But for anyone in the Libertarian Party, for anyone who supported you for President, Chase, that's quite an argument to make. Oh, you didn't win? Okay.
No, I think
there's another strategy that offers that.
And I'm not sitting here gloating. I don't think it's great that we don't have a libertarian in the cabinet. I would have actually liked to have been pleasantly surprised to see a libertarian be appointed to a cabinet position.
Well, I disagree, and I think an important point here is that a lot of people who scream on the internet also say that you're not a real libertarian, and that I'm not a libertarian, and that Dave's not one, and Clint's not one, and Josh is not one, and I could go down the list.
Fucking bitter.
I'm sure, but the point being that
dilemma.
Yeah, but the point being is that he did promise to put a libertarian in the cabinet. I don't really see one. RFK, we can argue, and you know what? Maybe we'll have a one-on-one debate one day, Angela, over how libertarian is RFK based on his past record.
Angela is being such a bitter bitch, and Chase is being so fucking appropriate. Naruto! I hope everyone has a good day tomorrow. Get fat and make happy memories with family and friends. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Naruto. I do appreciate the super chat.
His environmentalism, his state intervention, and his advocacy for all kinds of shit over the years. But we can have that another day. I'm going to allow other people to speak. I'm going to let other people continue to have this conversation here.
All right, fair enough. Well, I do very much appreciate you joining us, Chase.
Yeah, I do. And I want to say thank you for having me on for a moment, and we'll continue to have this conversation. I desperately want to see government reduced over the next 4 years. I'm not going to bet on it because I've seen the history of the way this goes. And I hope people who feel disappointed over the next 4 years can recognize that the better path is to organize an alternative and to build something up that can challenge both the Republicans and the Democrats, because they're both full of shit. And there always will be.
Yep.
And so with that being said, I hope everybody has a great night. I appreciate you giving me the chance to speak to some folks. I hope the rest of you guys have a great conversation. And we'll talk in the future, Dave. I'm sure we will be traveling in libertarian circles in the future, and we'll have a chance to see each other face to face again. So have a good night.
I'm sure you're right. All right. Thanks again, Chase.
Perfectly appropriate.
Okay, I do want to,
perfectly nice.
I want to let Michael Tracy go because
perfectly nice.
He's been waiting for a bit, and I really appreciate that he stopped into this. Michael, me and you.
I really hope and pray that Chase Oliver runs to be chair of the Libertarian Party, because Chase Oliver is the leader that the Libertarian Party needs. I'm sorry. He knows how to lead. He knows how to communicate. He is not in favor. Like, you might not like his personal positions on something, but that's not the same as wanting to impose government mandates. He works appropriately with people who have thrown him under the bus massively. He is the leader the Libertarian Party needs.
We've had a few back and forths on Twitter, but I will say you are someone who I very much respect and enjoy your work. So thanks for joining.
Well, thanks. And hopefully, Dave, you're one of the people who has the memory to realize that I'm not somebody who's suddenly afflicted with, quote, TDS. And therefore, I'm just trying to throw out any criticism of Trump that happens to be expedient. I was one of the very few people who had any media adjacency who covered the very early stages of what's now known as Russiagate. So when I do have something substantive to say about Trump, I hope it's not accompanied by this perception I'm just some kind of shrieking liberal. But as just to lay out my thoughts on this, I wouldn't purport to argue, Dave, that you have sold out your principles by supporting Trump. I frankly don't even know the fullest extent of your principles to even judge whether that's accurate, nor am I looking really to give strategic advice to the Libertarian Party. I mean, if the Libertarian Party wants to become an appendage of the Republican Party and like forfeit its independent electoral resources to bolster Trump and the Republicans, that's your prerogative, I guess. I know I'm not a member, so I guess it's not for me to really say if that's prudent. I guess the main point that I would make, though, is that I do feel, Dave, that you and people of a similar bent over the course of this election, because you decided to support Trump, presented a misleading and even kind of flagrantly distorted picture of Trump in service of your aim to get him elected.
True.
So, for example, and I know you know this, Dave, but Trump ran this entire campaign on the ground that, on the claim that the Biden-Harris administration had been insufficiently supportive of Israel, had not sent enough weaponry to Israel, and had imposed too many constraints on Israel's ability to wage its pulverization campaign across the Middle East. Now, I know you've acknowledged that, Dave, but if you have like a whole convoluted rationale to say that according to some libertarian principle, Trump winning is therefore a victory, then I guess I maybe question some of the prioritization. And I also saw an old tweet of yours, Dave, not because I was like looking to nail you on something from 4 or 5 years ago, but because some Libertarian Party member who you were feuding with retweeted it. And in 2019 up to 2022, you said that Trump had conducted a, quote, genocide. Now that's referring to the Saudi rampage in Yemen that Trump lavishly funded and armed. And I guess my question would be, if you're somebody who does sincerely believe that Trump is guilty of genocide, as you said yourself, and now you're coming up with this elaborate rationale to browbeat everybody into voting for him, I just don't find that to be a moral calculus that particularly adds up. And last point.
Exactly.
Dave, when there was this, stop Pompeo.
That is exactly what I was saying before. Dave Smith does not have principles other than whatever argument Dave Smith can use to get whatever Dave Smith wants at the time. But there's no hard and fast principles. If you really believe that Donald Trump committed a genocide, you're not fucking voting for Donald Trump. One of the main reasons I refused to vote for Donald Trump was because he would not commit to not going to war with Iran. I absolutely think that Trump's going to go to war with Iran, and I don't want to be any part of that. It's really simple. It's really simple. Even if you don't want Kamala Harris to win, if you have strongly held positions against war, against genocide, against all of the things that are going on in the Middle East, you don't vote for the people that you believe are going to perpetrate them. It's really simple. And Dave Smith just let all of these things that he said for years and years and years about Trump fly out the window because he was pissed off that he lost, that his candidate lost, that he couldn't control the messaging for the Libertarian Party presidential candidate, that someone he didn't like won, and he was a sore loser and had to burn the whole fucking thing down because he was pissed off that he lost.
Campaign or, advocacy push on social media around the time of the election. Donald Trump Jr., I recall, quote tweeted you and said basically was indicating that he agreed with you as to the Stop Pompeo campaign, right? Or call. And so then Trump did put out a Truth Social post saying that he was not going to be bringing Pompeo and also Nikki Haley back into the next administration. And then in typical Trump fashion, what did he do? He appointed 2 people to fill those same positions who are basically substantively interchangeable with Mike Pompeo and Nikki Haley. And I could have told you weeks or months or even years ago that something like this was very likely to happen, given the nature of Trump's political coalition, given the nature of the Republican Party, which the Libertarians helped this cycle in presenting as some kind of like anti-establishment insurgent force, which I think is absurd, up to and including Trump. And so like within like days of the election, there was this pump fake where everybody was claiming, oh, gee, Mike Pompeo's out. That must mean the so-called neocons have finally been expelled from the Republican Party or the administration. And he appoints people who, if anything, in the form of Rubio, represent an even more interventionist incoming administration than the first administration. Rex Tillerson, Trump's first Secretary of State, was just kind of a somewhat apolitical CEO of ExxonMobil who didn't have a career's worth of interventionist commitments and convictions. Marco Rubio does. So that all adds up to say that I think the supportive representation of Trump that you guys put forward, I think maybe contributed to misleading people about the actual stakes of the election and what Trump was likely to do when he got back into power.
Okay,
True.
so let me respond as much as I can. Okay, so mischaracterizations aside, like I just don't think it's at all accurate to say that I was browbeating people into voting for
It
Donald
is
Trump.
accurate.
Okay, encouraging.
It is accurate.
Okay, well, I don't really think I'm coming up with an elaborate justification for it. I think it's fairly straightforward and pretty rational. Look, we're libertarians here. Our view is essentially that we're under duress by the state as is, and voting is a strategic maneuver. It's not. We're in this situation whether we like it or not, and one of these two options are going to win, and one of these two options is going to lose.
So
it's not a question of.
This is the second time that Dave Smith is literally making the case for never voting for a Libertarian presidential candidate, no matter who it is. So then he needs to get the fuck out of the Libertarian Party and he needs to go become a Republican. If you are never going to vote for Libertarian candidates, no matter who they are, no matter what, because they're not going to win, get the fuck out of the party, go become a Republican.
Listen, like I'm with you on all of the policy points that you were making. Trump was horrible on Israel, and also I mean, it's the worst thing about Donald Trump, and I knew he was going to be bad on that. I also know that the alternative was going to continue the same policy as well. However, there is this other conflict in Ukraine where there is at least some real glimmer of hope that this administration might be moving in a much better direction there. And dear God, I mean,
Don't hold your breath on that one.
Can you
Yeah,
let
okay, but there's really no argument that there's substantially more hope. I mean, look at the way the Biden administration is escalating the war this week in like fears that Trump is going to get in there and negotiate the thing away. I mean, listen, I'm not saying I'm holding my breath on that either, man. Like, believe me, I live in the world of knowing what criminal, corrupt liars these people are. But it's like, you can't deny there's at least a glimmer of hope under this administration, and that is no small deal. We're talking about World War III and perhaps nuclear war. I mean, literally, it's not that hyperbolic when Russia just launched an intercontinental ballistic missile the other day. This is not so. There's also something there. There's also a major cultural media shift that's just happened in the country that I really think was necessary.
Maybe tomorrow night, instead of streaming on YouTube, maybe I'll do a something controversial marathon where we watch a lot of like videos we're not supposed to watch, and we do them over on Rumble and maybe on Kick. I don't really care if I know Kick is now banning all right-wing content or something. But like, I don't care if I get banned on Kick, so it doesn't really matter to me. But maybe we start watching like Europa or something like that tomorrow evening sometime. Maybe after, depending on when I get done Thanksgiving. Does everyone want to do that? Something controversial tomorrow? We can watch some Nazi stuff after we have Thanksgiving. I think that'd be a great idea.
And for the best, there's also these other areas that we care about that we were listing before. So it's not like some elaborate, like, explanation. It's there were two potential outcomes here. One is clearly preferable, and so fine, I'm going to throw my lot in with the one that I see as being preferable. I don't think this is like some convoluted, like, oh, I'm doing mental gymnastics to work out of some position. And then as far as what you're talking about, I mean, I don't know, dude, if you saw my thing. So yeah, I got the president's son retweeting me saying he agrees with me. I have relationships with a lot of people who are in Trump's like inner circle, like a lot of people, and I have pretty good relationships with them. And so yeah, I don't know, I'll try to use my influence to make it as good as possible. And in terms of like, after the Mike Pompeo, when he announced, when he put out that post that he wasn't going to have Mike Pompeo or Nikki Haley in, my next tweet was, "That's fantastic, but it's not enough. We got to keep all the war hawks out." And you know what? It didn't work. Like, I don't know. And so I didn't give him $100 million like Miriam Adelson did or whatever. So, okay, fine. It didn't work, but there was at least something to try there. I don't see why that's wrong. And as far as all that stuff that I've said in the past, listen, man, again, it's like, it's one thing if you just like kind of see my tweets, you don't really listen to my show and hear me talk about this stuff.
So Dave Smith can bring up that Chase Oliver made a personal decision to wear a mask to his family's Thanksgiving dinner in 2020. And that's just a bridge too far. And we can never entertain you 4 years later as a Libertarian presidential candidate because you made the personal choice to wear a mask to your personal family's Thanksgiving because people were still freaking out, and you made the personal choice to do that, not government mandated. That's just a bridge too far. But Dave Smith can tweet about Donald Trump eliciting a genocide and then just say, "Hey, bro, you took my tweets out of context, bro, and you really need to listen to my full show to get the full context on those tweets, bro." Come on.
But everybody who does listen to my show and hears me talk about this stuff already knows the answer to this. I stand by all that shit I said about him and how goddamn brutal the Saudi war in Yemen was and how disgraceful it was that he supported it every day of his administration. And yeah, he was in charge of the American war machine. And what does that make him? You know, the same as all the other presidents who presided over it. But at the same time, I don't think it's like, it's not selling out my principles to go right now. I think maybe the move for me is just was to focus on trying to use whatever influence I got around the people who got whatever influence they got to him to try to make it better rather than worse. That's kind of all.
Dave?
Yeah, I guess just one more point on that. Look, I mean, I understand the logic of saying I have influence available for me to potentially leverage in a forthcoming administration to see that maybe some more favorable outcome is attained. That's generally not the way that I operate. Not everybody has to operate the way I operate, okay? And I know I'm talking to people who are associated with Libertarian parties, so the calculus is different. But if I were put in a position where I have to say, look, I think it's now morally tenable for me to encourage everybody and to fashion an argument in favor of a candidate who I had previously accused of committing genocide. I don't know. I feel like if I actually believe that genocide had the moral salience that the term is usually associated with,
exactly,
that would be pretty tough. Even if I have people in like the inner circle or semi-inner circle who maybe I could send a text message to and have it put up the chain or something. So yeah, I mean, it's maybe a different moral calculus or ethical calculus that makes me not particularly relate to the one that you went with.
But Michael, you understand that there's currently, I mean, if you're going to call what happened in Yemen a genocide, I think it's fair to call what happened in Gaza a genocide. So when you're choosing between these two,
and Donald Trump is going to go to war with Iran on behalf of Israel. So Donald Trump does not look like the good guy when it comes to dealing with Israel and what they're doing in Palestine. I'm sorry.
Evils. Can you understand the rationale, particularly when the Ukraine war, which I guess you could argue is a genocide too, given the casualty figures on both sides, but particularly the Ukrainian side, and the fact that there's 6,000 nuclear weapons, that perhaps prioritizing de-escalating that would be rational. I mean, that's Dave and I came to this conclusion independently, but we have basically the same mind.
By the way, being that I'm fucking married to a Ukrainian, being that I was on the LPNH communication committee when the Ukraine war started, I'm old enough to remember when the Libertarian Party line and the Mises Caucus line was attack Ukraine, take Russia's side, instead of just putting out a message saying we shouldn't be fucking involved and NATO should be dissolved. They were overtly attacking Ukraine all the time. And that's the reason that I left the LPNH Communication Committee, is because I'm married to a Ukrainian. My brother-in-law is in the fucking Ukrainian army, and I was on the communications committee of an organization that was attacking my husband's country all the time, and I just said, you guys can say whatever the fuck you want. I don't want any part of this. So now for Clint Russell and Dave Smith to honestly be putting forth the argument, what's happening in Ukraine is a genocide and it's just so fucking terrible. Fuck you, assholes. I remember what the positions were. I remember what you two were putting out back then. And there was no, we have to stop the genocide in Ukraine.
On this issue, and that was my rationale. That was the logic by which I concluded that because we're facing such a severe threat with this incredibly reckless escalation against Russia, plus 36 trillion in debt. And yes, I know Trump is not good on debt by any stretch of the imagination, but with the Doge, Elon, Vivek, Ron Paul angle, it gives us some hope that there might be some cuts. I mean, that's really the rationale. It's not, and also just for the record, I know Dave has already expressed this, but neither of us encouraged our audiences to vote for Trump. We explained what we were going to do and the logic behind it, the rationale. If
they spent weeks attacking Chase Oliver, and then they put out videos saying they were going to vote for Trump. Now, guys, I don't even know why we're talking about this. We never told our audiences to vote for Trump. You're so full of shit. And this is why, like, Clint Russell and Dave Smith are fucking cowards. They're cowards. If you're going to take a position, at least own your fucking position when it doesn't work out. Don't then say, guys, that position that I took, it was, shucks, it was never really my position in the first place. You two are both fucking pussies that aren't men enough to stand by the positions that you made in the first place.
If they chose to do so, so be it. But that's really the conclusion that I came to. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are, given that what's happening in Gaza under the current regime, which Kamala Harris would almost certainly perpetuate, is that not the same argument against her that you're making against Trump?
Trump's doing the same thing, Clint.
Well, I was just quoting Dave in his description of Trump's policy in Yemen. I don't disagree necessarily about the Israel conflict at all. I didn't support Kamala Harris. I felt that it was ethically imperative for me to not vote for either Trump or Harris. That wouldn't have been so controversial of a standpoint to take among the Libertarian Party in previous cycles, but this cycle they chose to be collectively become appendage of the Republican Party, on the understanding that there was like some anti-establishment fervor that Trump was bringing to the fore, which I think really had very little relation to his first term in office.
I got to disagree.
Nor what he was likely to do in his. Well, I know you disagree because
we're not an appendage of the Republican.
Yes, we are, Angela. Under your leadership,
we're our own political party. We had our own candidate. There were members
who you abandoned, essentially.
Exactly.
No, that's not correct. And there's a long list of things that we did to support the candidate. Spending $55,000 on ballot access in the state of New Mexico, throwing a fundraiser for him, meeting with his campaign manager every other week for weeks on end. There's a ton that we did to support him. And he did not want to take my advice.
We met with the campaign manager every other week. Therefore, we supported Chase Oliver when we were all out shilling for RFK and Trump.
I gave him advice on how to go to an event and mimic what Jose Vega did, speak out stronger on the war in Gaza. He chose to go a different path, and that's his right, because I don't run his campaign. But I also chose to hedge my bets and do what I could to get a man out of prison, Ross Ulbricht. And I think that was the noble...
Free Ross! If you don't care about freeing Ross, you're a horrible person, and we had to vote for Trump in order to free Ross. There it is, the emotional blackmail again. I did what I had to do to get a man out of prison, guys! Fuck you, Angela.
Courageous thing to do. And I also chose to advance liberty. And I made alliances with Donald Trump and with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and it worked out I think, in our favor. And I'm very proud of that work, and I will continue to move it forward through the Libertarian Party. We lose all leverage if we don't just fold and go into the GOP. No one listening, no one, please, no one do that. The power is in the institution of the LP being on the ballot in nearly 50 states. That flex and being around for 50 years, it's a complex political strategy, not an appendage of the GOP.
Okay, so Dave, I have a question for you. So about potentially trumping the superior option in terms of averting World War III in Ukraine. I know that's a common conception of Trump, although I'm sure I don't have to tell you that Trump is the one who started arming Ukraine in the first place. He brought Ukraine to a subsidiary status within NATO. He abrogated arms control treaties with Russia. Maybe you didn't know that Trump accused Putin of committing genocide in Ukraine. Or that Trump threatened Putin personally that he was going to bomb the Kremlin. But even leaving that aside, the day before the election, Mike Waltz, who was in Trump's campaign entourage for a long time, I could have told you years ago, back when I was interviewing Mike Waltz at the so-called America First Policy Institute functions, that he was closely in Trump's orbit and was a likely candidate for some prominent cabinet position. Turns out he was named National Security Advisor, which, for better or worse, largely worse, is an extremely powerful position going back to Henry Kissinger. I mean, Jake Sullivan seemed to, in large part, orchestrate Biden administration policy, foreign policy, that is, in his capacity as a national security advisor. The day before the election, Mike Waltz was interviewed about what Trump's foreign policy would be in his second term, and he said that in order to bring about a so-called end to the war in Ukraine, what Trump would do is escalate the war by giving Ukraine the very authorizations, and maybe even more so, than Biden just did for long-range strikes in Ukraine. So when Biden ultimately made that decision last week, he was doing what Mike Waltz and company had been agitating for months. This was basically the consensus view in the Mike Waltz MAGA wing of the Republican Party. So I guess my question to you is, don't you think there would have been some value in emphasizing that aspect of the incoming Trump coalition more so than like this RFK fantasy world, where he has now no even purview over foreign policy, but he was going around, proclaiming that Trump's going to make peace with the world and, end the wars with really no specifics. Nobody pressed Trump to give any tangible commitments on how he would go about doing that. But now we have tangible policy coming out of the mouth of the person who Trump decided would be his national security advisor, which is not even a set and confirmed position. So Trump could have picked basically anybody. And he picked Mike Waltz, who says that his strategy is to literally escalate the war in Ukraine. So, why wasn't that ever emphasized in this cohort of libertarians who were on the Trump bandwagon?
Because they selectively emphasize what they want to.
There's a few different things there. Again,
hey
it's
guys,
almost like we're talking about this, guys. Here, because I'm saying A is preferable to B, and you're telling me everything that's wrong with A, much of which I agree with. And in terms of why isn't the focus on how bad his foreign policy is? I mean, of all the criticisms of me and the libertarians in this group and in my camp, the criticism that we don't focus on foreign policy enough, I don't think really lands here. In fact, it's kind of what we all obsess over.
I don't even know why we're talking about this, guys.
Topic.
This is
and for good reason.
This is Dave Smith's debate strategy. It's someone brings up a very valid point, and Dave Smith goes, hey, aw shucks, guys, listen, I just, there's a lot to unpack there, but I don't even know why we're talking about. Why is this even important? I mean, I just don't know. Guys. It doesn't really make sense to me, and we're doing all this other stuff over here, and I just don't know. That's his debate strategy. It's just deflection. All right, guys, we're rapidly losing viewers, and I have a feeling it's because it is Thanksgiving and people need to go do dinner and stuff like that. I want to listen to a little bit more of this, but we are going to cut it short pretty soon because I have to go make my turkey brine, and I probably should have started making it 2 hours ago. But we're going to listen to a little bit more just because I'm curious. But thank you for hanging out with me on this glorious Thanksgiving Eve. And we're probably going to listen until I finish knitting this row, and then we're going to call it a night. But if you're heading out, I hope you have a good Thanksgiving. And, I might be streaming tomorrow night some Nazi stuff over on Rumble. So go follow me at rumble.com/Carlin. And we'll watch some good controversial videos after we eat turkey.
And so, Waltz is a terrible pick, and Waltz is really bad on Ukraine. That's for sure. Waltz is really bad on Ukraine. Of course, your you're only painting half of the picture, and you know that. And the other thing is that Donald Trump has also said some really great things about Ukraine. He also has Hegseth has said some really great things about Ukraine. Also, he's got Tucker Carlson, who's a big influence on him, who said some great things. I understand these guys aren't in foreign policy posts, but he's got people around him who have influence on him who are really great on this. And the commander-in-chief himself has often talked about making a deal, stopping the dying. And he just the other day put out a video that was certainly a huge improvement from this administration, or whatever a Kamala Harris administration would have looked like. So I do want to let.
Are you guys all still here?
I want to let. Yes, we're here. I want to let. I want to let Josh Smith jump in because he hasn't spoke yet. And then, what's up, Dave? How are you, brother?
Oh shoot! I didn't even see that I was a speaker. I am dealing with a whiny child, but I just wanted to pop on it and say that I also was one of the people who talked a lot of trash about Trump for many years. And of course, I now almost famously as well endorsed him and tried to get people to vote for him. I actually did push for libertarians to vote for him because I think it was one of those weird times where we constantly were talking about how this is the most important election of our lifetime, but
it wasn't.
This really did get to a point where
Spoiler,
as somebody who's raising a large family, it was dire straits. I mean, our cost of groceries has gone up $800 a month in the last 3 years. And if we're talking a lot about Ukraine and Russia, and I think that that's a really important aspect of this whole election as well, because things are escalating insane amounts in that part of the world. And if you look just 10 days after Donald Trump was elected, the Biden administration immediately gave more weapons to Ukraine and told them that they could use longer range missiles in Russia. It's like they know that Trump is going to come on and he said it as much, that he's going to come in and he's going to swiftly put an end to the war that's going on between Ukraine and Russia. And I think that's great. I think that's a good thing. And if libertarians aren't looking at this and going, hey, this is actually a good thing, then I think that you're, like Angela said, ideologically possessed by a demon, because these are good things. These are things that are going to help our country. And, as libertarians, we need to take the wins where we can get them. And I saw it as a self-defense vote. I don't think anybody was selling out principles. I don't think anybody on this call that voted for Trump that's a libertarian did so thinking that we were going to have a libertarian administration.
No one
that
ever
the administration
said
was
that.
going to 100%, be a libertarian all the way administration.
So you can hear the talking points. You know that they've planned the talking points for this because they're all saying exactly the same thing.
And it was going to end all the regulation and taxes and all this stuff. But, Trump heard somebody on Twitter talking about ending taxes on overtime and went out and said it on national television. He's talked about trying to end the income tax. I mean, we're talking about things that have never been talked about by mainstream politicians in the mainstream ever. And whether he does them or not, the fact that they're now being talked about around the dinner table is huge victory for libertarians. And we really need to take the wins where we can get them. And, I applaud Chase for coming on here and sitting down and talking to Dave Smith, because it's the first time he's talked to any of the big libertarian podcasters since he decided to run for president. So for me, it was like, okay, we have this candidate who's pretty libertarian on a lot of things. He's running as a libertarian. He's supported a bunch of things that I can't get behind, like, being okay with transing the children.
He never
and
supported
obviously
that.
he
That's
was
not what he did.
a big supporter of the COVID regime. He's trying to say he's not, but he went through and deleted all those tweets because he knows that he was pushing this propaganda machine that we all fought against for 4 years. Me personally, I told my job specifically that I would walk out if they were going to do a vaccine mandate, put my whole family in jeopardy. And I'm not going to support somebody that went on Twitter and said, hey, mask up, get your vaccine so you can go to family gatherings. You know what I mean? That's just not okay out of the Libertarian Party. And so, I think we need to take the wins where we can get them. I don't think anybody's selling out principle here. And I don't think specifically Dave, absolutely, it's insanity if you think he's selling out principle by voting for a guy in a strategic, self-defense move. But I'd be really interested to hear, like,
it's an act of
if
self-defense
people that are mad at this are what, like, specifically, are they mad that the war in Ukraine and Russia might stop? Are they mad that we're now talking about ending the income tax, that we're talking about freeing Ross Ulbricht? These are really substantial.
Are you guys mad that we're talking about freeing Ross Ulbricht? Is that what it is, guys? Do you guys just really not want Ross Ulbricht to get out of prison? Are you mad that we're talking about it's the emotional fucking blackmail again?
Wins for libertarians, and I think it needs to be celebrated. But anyways, I'm dealing with a kid who's a little upset right now. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for having me on, Dave. I appreciate you.
Sure thing, Josh. Take care of those kiddos. And I will say this,
Jacob, can I say something?
Just one second, real quick, and then I'll come to you. So I just gonna say that it is interesting for me to see, like, also just a thing I noticed on Twitter a lot the other day.
Is Jacob or Dave here still?
Yeah, can you not hear me, Dave?
You cannot hear
Dave.
Yeah,
Dave, your
Dave,
audio
you
might.
can't hear us. You need to drop down and come back, man.
Oh, okay. 1 second.
No, not you, Dave.
No, not you, Dave. Dave Benner.
No,
yeah,
Bennett,
we can hear you, Dave.
Oh.
Oh, this is
Oh,
confusing.
okay. Okay. Yes. All right. So
yeah,
no,
Benner,
I was gonna-
just hop out and then I'll let you back in, okay?
So I've seen like a bunch of libertarians who were like, I guess advocating that we should have supported Chase instead of Trump, and they were saying like about Doge, and they were like, yeah, Doge isn't even a real department.
It's
it doesn't
not
have
a
any
real
teeth
department.
to it.
It doesn't have any teeth to it.
As opposed to what? I mean, like, what are we doing when we run a candidate for president on the Libertarian?
So we can't be honest about this and say that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have no official power in the government at all? We can't have an intellectually honest conversation about this. Guys, it's better than nothing, guys. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be. We don't know.
Party. I mean, it's not like Chase didn't get us ballot access or get it. Yeah, you're trying to get the word out. You're trying, like, it's just like, yeah, this is being done on a much, much larger level than any of us would have been capable of launching this message to. I just never, I remember even when I was really planning on running, and Michael Heiss,
When
who
I
I'll
was
throw to
really
you,
planning
next, 'cause
on
you just
running.
got here. Sorry, buddy, I didn't see it in the request line, but I remember, and you could back me up on this, but we used to talk about this when I was really planning on running, and we'd be talking on the phone, and I would always say to you, I'd always be like, listen, dude, if we start doing this and we get into it, and then like Thomas Massey runs or Rand Paul runs, and they're like really putting it together, and it's just doing something bigger than we could do, then as embarrassing as it is, we're gonna all have to like leave the Libertarian Party and go support this guy. And and I thought the odds of that happening weren't very high. But it's always just been like, to me, obvious that like, oh, if someone who can amplify this message larger than me is spreading it, then great. Then that's the whole point. You want to get this out there. And so it's just very bizarre to me to have third-party libertarian members saying, oh, this Doge thing doesn't have real teeth to it, as if the Libertarian Party does, or the Chase campaign does.
Correct.
And
We're all
I-
walking around toothless.
First honest thing that Dave Smith has said in this entire space, the Libertarian Party is not influential. Angela McArdle's not going to like that because Angela McArdle wants you to think that she's deeply influential and that the Libertarian Party backing Trump is a deeply influential move. Dave Smith just said it, though. Listen, guys, we don't really have any teeth. We got no there. We're not influencing shit. That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point.
For God's sake.
Yeah. Michael Heiss, what's up, brother?
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Well, I mean, on the Doge front, I will say that Vivek has repeatedly said that there's a lot that we're going to be able to get done with executive powers and the Supreme Court the way it is. So I still have hope that that's going to happen. I still have hope that the Ross thing is going to happen. And I got to be the cantankerous old man here a little bit because I always like to remind people, maybe I'm only 35 years old, but I've been in the movement for 20 years. Okay. And I think people sometimes forget where we are compared to where we've been. And I'm going to humble brag for you a little bit, Dave, and Angela as well. When Dave says, oh, I'm friends with people in Trump's inner circle, or when Angela says, I am fighting to support Robert Kennedy because Kennedy is supporting our people there, what they're talking about is, like, Tucker Carlson is very influential on Trump.
We have famous
Dave
friends,
is
guys.
friends with and has the trust of Tucker Carlson. You know what I mean? So, like, we have that ability, that osmosis to reach the halls of power. Angela is literally in the gears of power right now, fighting for our cause. Now, you might say, oh, well, that sucks that we lost the fight or whatever. But my God, compare this to what the situation was 20 years ago. I mean, I remember a time where like this idea of like, there's all these podcasts out there and you can like choose the libertarian podcast that you like and surround yourself with your libertarian friends and wear your libertarian merch and all this shit. completely new and different, let alone that media apparatus destroying the corporate media apparatus and having an influence across the new media class of the podcaster world, which is more libertarian friendly than any media class that has come before. So I think having some perspective there is really, really important. I also think people need to kind of consider what is a vote. You know, I agree with you, Dave, that a vote is a tactical consideration. You know, if you want to get into the libertarian nerd weeds here, you know, I subscribe to the Spooner argument that, you know, we're in self-defense, and if government, that we're voting in self-defense, and if government is forced, that means society is under duress, and under duress, you have to make choices based on what's best for you given that duress, and that's essentially what a vote is from my perspective. So for me to look at the chessboard, the reality of the chessboard, and say, okay, yes, Trump, I've said it before too. I think Trump committed genocide in Yemen. That was like a major thing for me. I said that on a Reason interview.
So Michael Heiss believed Donald Trump literally committed a genocide, and then Michael Heiss willingly threw the Libertarian Party under the bus as a paid contractor for the Libertarian Party, by the way. Michael, this is not theoretical. Michael Heiss gets paid based on Libertarian Party member dues. But he voted for Trump, even though he thinks Trump staged a genocide. Okay. Yup. Sure. Uh-huh. Yeah.
However, that was the reality of the situation, is that we could have somebody who was bad on Israel and Iran, or somebody who's bad on Israel, Iran, and Ukraine. You know, and that would not come with the opportunities for Doge. It would not come for the opportunities for freeing Ross, or any of these other things that he has promised. You know, he supported the marijuana decriminalization effort in Florida. He's talking about no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. You know, all of this kind of stuff, and like bringing into the lexicon, ending the income tax from the incoming president. It's just crazy. So I think, like others have said, we have to count our blessings here, and basically acquiesce to this new reality where we do actually have skin in the game. And I think that's new and it's uncomfortable. We actually have stakes because of this changing landscape and our ability to have real influence. And we've never actually had that before. We could comfortably sit away cloistered in our principal, you know, towers and everything, but we're actual players in the game now and have to make real choices with real calculus and real skin in the game, and the game changes at that point. So I think the role of the party moving forward is to, you know, in some ways be what it's always been. The messaging should be about principle. It should be about spreading the message, getting people to buy into that message, changing culture through that message. But to the extent that we're combining that with an actual political strategy, yeah, we've got to take the wins where we can get them and exert our influence where we can do so, and take fight for what we want while always taking what we can get.
Yeah, I agree completely with Michael. Hey, Jacob, I want to I'm gonna throw it to Dave because he hasn't gotten a chance to talk yet. But I want to let's try to bring in like a few, because I don't know of the people requested here. I don't know all of them, but if you know,
I'll start.
Let's try
I'll
to bring
start
in some
cycling
critics.
some in. Yeah,
but let's bring in some people who are like critical, or because I do want to like take on some of the arguments that I was getting the other day. If anybody wants to, you know, everyone's got their own different arguments.
I'll bring some good ones in.
Irene is a good one, but she's not going to argue against us. But she's got some good perspective too.
Okay, we'll get her in at a certain point, but I just want to get people who disagree in. But Dave, go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Sorry, it probably sounded like I was interrupting like a chode, which I am, but not for that reason. So, but I appreciate it. So I find myself like kind of in the middle of this debate to some extent. Compared to what we've been living with, obviously, I can't really blame the pro-Trump strategy, even though I didn't personally embrace it. And I've been pretty cynical about some of the selections and what I've seen so far. For the most part, I've lauded some other aspects, but here's what I'll say, and it will come off as kind of an indictment on both sides to some extent. So I wish the libertarians that are so opposed to this vote for Trump strategy would be a little bit more vocal about how freaking monumental freeing Ross Ulbricht and ending all U.S. intervention in Ukraine would actually be. And
I said I was going to keep listening until I was done my row, and I'm done my row, and I need to go cook Thanksgiving, and it's 8:00, and I know there's a lot more to this Twitter space, and I know some people are listening, but we got a very small audience tonight because I think most people are going for Thanksgiving. So I think we're just going to cut it there, and I'm going to go do Thanksgiving, and I'm going to go start brining my turkey and make my brine and all that good stuff. And so I'm sorry we didn't get through the whole thing for people who wanted to see the whole thing, but I think I've made my point, and I think I've said what I wanted to say. And, yeah, it's just, the Libertarian Party is a perpetual disappointment for me. It really is, because they could stand for something, and instead they chose to stand for nothing. So let that be a lesson to you guys. I mean, at some point, I think that everyone has to decide how important are principles to them, really. I'm not selling out my principles for anything. I've had many opportunities where I could sell out my principles for money. Doesn't happen. I've had many opportunities where I could sell out my principles to get to network with famous people or to go to Mar-a-Lago, because I could have done that too, Angela. And no, not for nothing. Nope, not happening. And people who do choose to sell out their principles are the ones that are going to have to look themselves in the mirror and confront what they did at some point. And my experience has been that, you know, you may take some short-term losses, but long-term, if you stick by your principles, you will never regret that decision in the long term. Short-term losses, yeah, it might suck in the short term, but every time that I've done this, where I've given up something that could have been big or something that people would think that most people would really want because of a principle, every single time I've done this, it's paid off in spades, and it might take years. It might literally take years. But I've never regretted the decision. So I leave everyone with that. I hope everyone has a good Thanksgiving. And I'll probably be streaming later in the day tomorrow. Watch my Twitter account. I'll let you know when. Subscribe to my Rumble channel, rumble.com/Carlin, because I'll probably be doing a Rumble exclusive tomorrow. And yeah, I hope you guys have a lot of fun. I hope you guys eat some good food. And we'll see you on the flip side, guys. Take care. Have a good one. We'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer. this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.